All right, boys, we are here with Mauisnake, infamous analyst and caster. Have you actually ever casted a game, or have you always done the analyst stuff?
I did some casting for a while with Anders. Actually, funnily enough, for people that maybe haven't heard this story before, Blast wanted me to cast the Paris Major with Anders because we had done some stuff with Blast before that. But I just kind of said, I really think that my skill set would be most suited to being on the desk because I think I would have the most impact. And that's kind of where I said stuff about Cadian being a main character and how he choked and everything. And
Yeah.
that kind of made waves in the scene. So I think job well done for myself at least, even though it made me some haters. But if I had casted I think in some ways I just don't have the A plus qualities of some of the best casters in the world, like the mechanics and the timing and all the hype. And I'd never actually at that time done an arena cast. And if I just got kind of thrown in on the deep end there, like it's the major, I feel like the chance of me messing something up for a big
Yeah.
moment is a little bit higher. And I wanted to get my feet underneath myself as a caster on those kind of stages. Maybe like something a little smaller. Maybe it's a missed opportunity, but at the same time, I'm really happy with what I did at that event.
No, I think it makes sense. I like your takes. It's always nice to have people with different viewpoints. And I've done some analyst work at big events. I've never actually like. No, actually, that's not true. I've done color casting at a major way back in like 2014 when it was a little less professional. Like they just be like, "Hey, you want to hop on?"
Right.
With this guy, because there wasn't like everyone wasn't getting these crazy salaries, and like you brought in
Hmm.
like 10 casters where they all have like slots. So I've done it both, and I feel like with analysts, it's just different because you have time to watch the game, maybe write notes down if you're a note writer guy, or internally in your brain, and then you know what you're going to say. Whereas when you're casting on the fly, you kind of have to be quicker on your feet, right? Like
Hmm.
it's less like you're more reacting to what's happening. Obviously, you could have some like demo prep or some stats. People like they have a 40% chance to win CT.
Yeah.
Like you could always have like the little stats, but yeah, I feel like analysis is a lot better for people that are more like they like to view the game on like the larger scale, I guess,
Hmm.
because you can kind of like nitpick. Oh, this round they did that, this, and I think that's the most fun for me personally. Like color casting's all right, but like you said, it's like a specialty kind of like a
Yeah.
type of thing. So, but you mentioned
It
Liquid and Cadian, so let's
yeah.
quickly chat about that for 1 sec. So originally, obviously, that Liquid lineup was a failure, right? Like the, the
Right.
the original one. I mean, they actually, I mean, I'll be fair to them. They actually made deeper runs than I think people give them credit for. A couple times, like they didn't
At
bomb out of
Chengdu, yeah.
they didn't bomb out of everything, but with all the money and the hype and everything, like you would expect more deeper runs. And it seemed like with the twist interviews and a couple other things that there was a little bit of like internal combustion going on in that roster. And
Hmm.
like I wanted to have your opinion of like the way I view Cadian is he needs a roster of a bunch of yes men that are just going to listen to him.
Oh
Like
yeah.
like four players, and like maybe you could have one guy that's like the star, where like he's maybe a little bit of a diva or something. But like he needs at least 3 out of 4 of those guys to like if he says jump, they say how high. Like
Hmm.
and when you because his playstyle is actually very good for bringing like a team that's maybe not quite as good as everyone else and beating like the top tier guys because it's not like he's just gambling out of like for no reason. He's doing pretty well calculated like timings and pushes and clearing. And but at the end of the day, I feel like for better players that are like they want to like really good players want to lose by their own will or like merits, kind of like
Yeah.
they want to play a site. And like you're hitting B on Inferno, Nico and Malbs are going to play the site, and they're going to hold that like normally. Whereas like with a Cadian roster, they're going to clear top mid on Inferno. They're going to leave one guy at aim. They're going to rotate like 4 towards B. They're going to have some
Yeah.
gimmicky setup, and it's awesome. Don't get me wrong. I like watching. I thought Heroic was a fun team to have in the pool because they brought something different from everyone else. But like, do you kind of like agree with that with like Katie and
Yeah, that's a I mean, the way you characterize the way they play is pretty similar to how I would too. It's just such a he like controls everybody so much more. I know some people have said stuff about his microing. It's almost to me I guess it depends how you view that term, but it's kind of like he, like you said, he's gonna. gamble stack something and have one guy cycle through utility on the other bomb site and hoping that it's going to push the T's to the stack, the gamble stack. And he makes a lot of good reads. And when Heroic were playing what I felt was in 2023 the best overall Counter-Strike as a team, I
Yeah.
felt like it was so founded on that principle that it might look stupid for the one guy that's on that bomb site by himself, but more often than not, in a 15 round half, we're going to force them to for them to look stupid, and we're going to outplay them more often than not. And right, it doesn't actually lead to star players consistently popping off. In fact, it was kind of a win by committee thing. You would
Yeah.
see, sure, Stown would and Yabby would generally have the best stats on the team by the end of it, but there were many games where Shush or Tessis ended up with the best stats on their in their matches. So it was not designed for players. It was designed off of like a number theory that Cadian always was working with through his head.
And when you're a team that's like slightly maybe like the underdog, that's like a great way to play. Like I've always said, like I've gotten shit in my career in the past of being on teams with like weaker players, and they'll be like, "Oh, you guys are doing these like gimmicky strats," and to me, I'm thinking like, dude, we literally will never beat anyone good with this
Yeah.
roster. With like, not no offense to anyone I was playing with, but like, you got to be a realist in this game, right? Like, if I got Nico and Monacy, we're not doing anything gimmicky, man. I'm letting Monacy go do whatever he wants. Nico's gonna be holding a flank at some point. I'm gonna activate him, and they're just gonna hit shots, and I'm gonna make sure that the strat is designed to give them fair duels. That's all. Like I feel like when you have
Right.
players that good, you just need them to get fair fights. They're gonna win most of their fights. Whereas if you put Cadian on G2, it's not working. Like
No.
it's just not working. Like it's just a silly decision. But yeah, no, I definitely agree with you there. So now they picked up Ultimate and JKS, which did you know anything about Ultimate? Because I didn't.
I watched one of his demo. I watched basically his best demo when he was on Illuminar, and it was this game where he played Dust 2 and got maybe like 40 kills in overtime. And so I just used that purely. I wasn't going to dive too much deeper in him at the time. And I mean, the thing that I saw from him was that one, he was really aggressive, and two, he also liked rifling a lot on the T side, even on Dust 2, because
Oh really?
Dust 2, you would think you would be willing to just kind of hold the op in a lot of situations. But even if he knows his team needs to move forward, he would instantly drop the op if there's a gun on the ground, pick up the rifle, and just start charging forward with his team. And I mean, that's actually how he got most of his kills. He had really great rifling ability in that game. He was like one tapping people across long A and stuff. It was pretty fun to watch, actually, if anybody wants to go back to that one. But it's no, yeah, that's kind of all I got from him. I saw him in tier 3 and stuff like that, and that's why I thought that it was a pretty strong risk for him to pick him up at least. And uh, I mean, Cologne was a pretty big shock. Like he actually met the test in a lot of different ways.
I was just watching a couple of his demos the other day, or like Liquid's games. And you're right, he's very aggressive. There's a couple times where like I remember he ran on off cat on Dust 2, and just instead of peeking, he literally just jumped onto the rail. He died, but
Yeah, yeah,
but I was like,
yeah.
oh, okay, like this guy is not afraid at all. So yeah, he's definitely mechanically like gifted as well. Like he doesn't miss many easy shots. Like he definitely seems to be like a diamond in the rough type of pickup. I'm curious how Twist did it. Like I don't know. Like sometimes he said he scouted, but like sometimes maybe he's playing Pugs or FPL or something, and then like, when you play versus that guy and you just kind of feel it. Like you can
Yeah.
feel like, okay, this guy is good. Like there's always the times where you get pissed and you're like, fuck this guy, and you kind of make excuses of like, oh, he's lucky, or like he's a noob, or he's just playing stupid. But like sometimes you die to people and you're like, yeah, this guy,
Yeah.
like this guy's good. All right, like so I wonder exactly how Twist like actually did it, because he said he had full control of the roster, right?
Right.
To make changes. So I mean, props to him, because that's a ballsy pickup, especially with a org like Liquid. Like you probably could have got a more like established
Yeah.
opper, although there isn't a ton. But
Like the rumor was Hades, but I feel like everybody knows what they're gonna get with Hades at this point. That
yeah,
which is probably a little bit dissuading because he's kind of Hades as a player. It doesn't seem super likely that he's gonna get 15% better at any point. Like he's good, and I think you can actually maybe become a top 10 team pretty consistently in the world with him. But as opposed to getting a guy like Ultimate who has a lot of upside. That's probably a bit more of a that's probably something that draws somebody like Twist. And also on top of that, I will say I assume that the cost of getting Ultimate from a Luminar wasn't that much. And if Liquid told him you have full control, but we also only have this much money, probably kind of fits both of those pretty well.
No, you're probably right. I think like in this day and age, I think obviously so a lot of orgs like some orgs have infinite money. It seems like I don't know how they do these big buyouts, but yeah, I definitely think like now people are kind of factoring like, okay, we can get this guy. He's maybe a B plus player, but his salary is going to be like 30K,
Mm-hmm.
or we can get this guy who also is maybe a B plus, but with more potential, or more scalability, right? Like
Yeah.
you don't know his true level because he's never really been tested, and his salary might be like 5K. So,
Right.
right? So it's like from a management perspective, like I can kind of see that coming into play. Just like being on orgs my whole life, like that's definitely been a factor for a lot of our roster changes. Like I opt in my career much longer than I wanted to, just because there is no ops. Like, and if
Mm-hmm.
your org wouldn't dish out money, you just you pick up some up and coming player, or you recycle the same ops. Kind of like what you're saying with Hades is like, yeah, maybe they're fine, but you don't want fine.
Right.
Like as a competitive like person trying to win events, like you want like a star for an off role at least, right? Because that's like such an
Mm-hmm.
important role. Um, but then they got JKS, who I mean that's a no brainer, right? Like
Yeah.
I
Yeah. I was a fan of that.
I mean like I know he kind of got some flack at the end of G2. His stats weren't the greatest. If you go back and look, like they're actually fairly poor, which I didn't even realize. Like honestly,
Mm-hmm.
like the eye test didn't match with his stats for me. Um, but yeah, I definitely think he's one of those players. Like he's probably going to vibe a little bit better with Liquid. I think the environment will be better with him. Twist and Naf are super chill, like nice
Mm-hmm.
guys. I feel like JKS is kind of quiet and just like. I mean, I've
Yeah.
talked to him at events. He's a super nice guy. I'm just saying, like, I don't think he's like super outgoing, like very vocal and stuff. So I think he actually fit in with the team well.
Yep.
Um, but I mean, honestly, props for him for just waiting for a good offer, because a lot of players will just
Yeah.
take a like I'm sure he got offered for maybe like complexity. I'm just making this up. I don't know, but like a lot of those tier like
Team that level at least.
yeah,
Yeah. Like the tier 1.5 team.
yeah, that's a good way to. Yeah, that's what I say too. Like the tier 1.5, they're not tier 2 because that's kind of like insulting. Like you
Right.
wouldn't call complexity tier 2, but I don't really classify them as like tier 1 yet.
Right. They're
Like
not the I mean, Vitality, Liquid, Phase, G2, those are I would say are more like the tier 1 orgs, whereas Complexity good, I mean, they obviously are solid, but it's not really the gunning every tournament for S tier trophies. That's
yeah,
how I'd see it.
they're like always the dark horse that almost does it. Like
Mhm.
they never really make like the super deep runs on a consistent basis. Like even G2 when they're like having like problems, they still make pretty deep runs
Yeah.
at events. And I think some of the top teams sometimes they get flack, and I'm like, well, they're not doing that bad.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Like a lot of orgs would love for them to get fourth at a
Right.
at a tournament, but yeah, so I mean, like for me, I've been watching more of the Liquid games than any other ones, and I've actually been like, okay, like I know they had the phase game yesterday.
Mhm.
I don't know if did you watch that one?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I went through the whole thing. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
watching that. That
So
one was ridiculous. That was hilarious. I'm not gonna lie. That I couldn't believe that happened. Actually,
yeah, that I
that
mean,
it's
11-1
it's.
is just like
I know, I know. I'm actually curious. Like, I was watching that one live on stream, and so I was just really reacting to it, and I was seeing these kind of big moments from the individuals on phase. Like Rop's, I think the most memorable moment for me from an individual was just a 2K from Rops where he's at stairs and then he kills one guy. He like peeks up the top of stairs, kills a guy from Liquid running out ramp, and then he just whips his mouse around to connector and the smoke's fading. And I think it's Twist and Con, and he instantly destroys him too. And I was like, I think that was at 10-12. And at that point, I'm just like, okay, that's when I knew it was like, this is definitely hitting OT. Sure, like there's no way that Liquid are getting this done in
The
regulation. They're not
nerves are
getting it down around 24.
the nerves are so high. You're thinking
Yeah,
in the back of your head, you're like 11-1. You know, at the start of the half, they're laughing.
yeah.
Like they're all like, "Oh, these guys are noobs." Like, just for anyone watching, like when you call people noobs, you don't actually mean that.
Oh,
But
totally.
like
Right.
it's a way to hype yourself up. Like these, let's go finish these bots. And like people are like,
Yeah,
they're
yeah,
not bots. It's like, chill, dude. Where
yeah. I
it's
know, I
it's
know.
competition, boys.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was like honestly insane. And like phase, like, let's stick for
Wait,
liquid
really,
for a sec,
wait,
but like,
really quick. Actually, I was because I'm like I'm playing intermediate with just some friends. Actually, probably some guys you played with when we were playing open. Actually, a long
okay,
time
yeah,
ago, and I stream all the games, and I just kind of like skip through it back. And I do say that too, where I'm like, oh, like all we have to do is like just default against these noobs or whatever. And it's like,
yeah,
by the way, the game went to like double overtime with
yeah,
my friends. It was
I'm,
like I was like, they're not actually noobs. It's just something you have to say.
yeah,
You do it, yeah, just because you can't say like these formidable opponents that should
no.
be respected, we should default. It's like, no, obviously
It's
not.
like it's like when you do interviews, right? Before a tournament, like people are like, "Oh, how do you think you're gonna do?" If you're not Navi or something, like, and you're like, "We're gonna win," people are like, "These noobs aren't gonna win." And then you're
Yeah,
like, "Yeah, I don't know. We're really aiming for top 5." People are like, "Well, they
yeah.
don't even think they can win," and it's just like,
There's no right answer.
"Okay, man." Like, yeah,
Yeah.
people are so nitpicky for that, but. To finish up with Liquid, for me, I actually like the roster. Like, well, how about you? Like, do you like the changes?
I at this point now that Ultimate has shown the capabilities, I actually can't really knock it too much. I feel like the one thing that I have to, I mean, there's a couple of hesitations I have about just saying that, oh, they're going to be top 5, top 4, or anything like that, and those are one, they're in a bit of a honeymoon, and I feel like the term honeymoon is kind of thrown around, and people haven't really given it a strict definition of why it's good. And I think that's worth talking about. And I like your perspective. But first off, I think that when you're coming together as a 5-man lineup, everybody's doing their absolute damnedest in terms of providing individual form, in terms of bringing ideas to the table, and trying to mesh and meld and always being forgiving. If something doesn't go well, you're going to say, oh, that's okay. Like, we're still figuring it out. And that's kind of same thing applies for relationships, obviously, which is why the term is used. But the other thing is that teams also, when they're playing a team that's in their honeymoon, don't know how that team's going to play. And that includes how Ultimate's going to play, how Twist is going to call. And now that teams are starting to see Liquid, and now that they pretty much have to respect them, that's when I feel like teams are challenged. I feel like the first month is always kind of like that's the honeymoon for a team. And then it's like their third tournament where people have actually looked at their demos. Unless they're just failing, people are now starting to look at their demos and say, why are they actually a competitive team versus FaZe? And so the concerns I have moving forward are like, okay, can Ultimate be this aggressive as often as he can? Is he actually this good? Or did people just not know how he wants to open rounds? And two, does Twist actually have a deeper understanding of the mid late round of what he wants to do as finishers? Because if people start to just be like, oh, he's always doing this, then they're going to be able to counter it and stack the bomb sites that he wants to go to a little bit easier.
Yeah, I actually agree with you completely. I was saying I liked it, just to clarify. I like the roster just because the Kading and Skulls roster was not working,
No, no, right.
and the ultimate was my biggest concern. JKS, I kind of knew what to expect from him.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimate, I was like, it was very like, okay, if he can perform at like a good level, this will be a good move, right? And so far he hasn't like been simple level, but he's definitely good. But I agree with you of like it's kind of like the donk syndrome, right? No one knows what you're doing. It's like you just run people over. Like
Yep.
even with someone as talented as him, you can see what happens when he gets antied a little bit. Um, but yeah, in terms of like so like I like the roster and I like you're saying we'll have to see how they do in the future with more events and like how deep their playbook is and stuff like that. But my biggest concern was honestly twist calling
Yeah.
because and it's not like I don't think Twist can be a good caller. It's just like you're taking like a prime years of Twist's career and making him a caller. So in that aspect, I don't. That's the only thing I don't really like about this roster is that I think Twist is a waste of a caller. Like right
Yeah.
now, it's like just to me. But then again, it's like like picking up a caller is so difficult. Like um, like who do they get?
Right.
Hoopsie,
That's the only name that I kind of felt was floated, even in my own eyes. I don't I because he would play.
yeah,
Yeah, but then now you have Jake. If you have JKS, Naf, and Hooksy, it's kind of like these guys all are sort of anchorish players. I guess Naf would probably be the sort of short player on Mirage for a cat player. Maybe he would take up the kind of rotatorish CT spots, but he's always been so good at anchoring, so I don't really want him to change too
yeah,
much either.
exactly. So yeah, for me it was just like it's kind of like Nico in the recent interview he did. He's like I almost called, but then I real like he still felt like he
Yep.
could be a top player. Um, Obviously Nico's been like one of the best riflers in the history of the game every year. Whereas Twist has not been quite as good as that, but like Twist is just one of those valuable players where he plays a bunch of spots that aren't star spots, and he excels in them. So for me, I don't love him calling, but that's just
Mhm.
me. But I will say, in terms of like how you're saying with his playbook and stuff, the one saving grace to me is like he played with Kerrigan for a long time, and I'm assuming that some of the friction with Cadian and himself was probably him thinking about how Kerrigan called, right?
Yeah,
Like because
definitely.
I've had the same thing happen where you play with Sean Gares and Dazed and myself calling, and you all have like kind of like an understanding of the game in a certain way, and then you go play for someone else calling, and you're just like, this is bad.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
not good. Like, sure, it might be good enough to win some games. Like, no top level caller is calling terribly generally, but like, there's just levels to it, right? So
Hmm.
someone like Kerrigan has been playing all the way since 1.6. He's been, fine tuning this craft for over a decade. So he's one of the best. He probably is the best. Can you even make an argument for anyone else really?
Not right now. Not right now.
Yeah, like people used to say
You
Glaive, but I feel like that's
I
fallen a
think
bit.
you could the strength of Kerrigan in any of these discussions is he could probably take any four players that are on top 20 teams and turn it into a top five team in the world,
Exactly,
unironically.
which is
It's
crazy
yeah.
if you think about it, because so many teams try these different rosters and different moves, and it's like maybe one of his strengths is like managing personalities too, because
Yeah.
some teams it can be like hot in the in the server when people disagree or aren't playing super well. But I'm just hoping that like in my head I'm like, well, if this works, it's going to be a lot of like Twist bringing in a lot of stuff that Kerrigan had, all the stuff they did on FaZe. He's got all the stuff from Liquid that was super well, because like obviously I worked with Adren for a while, and there's definitely some like little things and protocols, that they would have for like mid rounds and stuff like that. So yeah, I definitely think, assuming Twist is not just going on his own path, which I don't think he's going to do, and he's taking notes from his past teams, I think he's got one of the best perspectives to become a good caller. Just because how many people have worked with Kerrigan and Nitro and Sean
Right.
Gares and stuff. Like he's definitely played me for, but
Yeah,
but
yeah.
yeah, like there's been so many different rosters that he's played on. So for me, I think Twist can do it. I wanted him to wait like 2 years, like wait for his performance to decline a little bit and then maybe transition to
Hmm.
that role. But yeah,
That's incredibly valid because the wealth of perspectives that he's been around is definitely going to shape him in a specific way that he can take all the best parts of those, what won before. And like you said, I mean, the thing about Twist that's impressive is he wasn't just kind of playing, like, for lack of a better way to frame it, like brain dead aimer entry kind of roles. Like
yep,
he was sometimes the guy in a phase round where he's a little bit more passive. He's the linchpin in a defense. He's the guy that knows that he needs to play off of somebody else's contact. Then he needs to swing. He needs to be, sometimes he's the guy that knows he needs to peak first. Like so many phase rounds were Twist making that next step in the play that got them over the line as opposed to being the jackknife to start things off. And I think that's actually why you could probably compare him to Yakindar, because Yakindar technically played with Hooch a long time ago, but then he pretty much just played under James' system. And the thing is that Yakindar's playstyle was entirely one dimensional. Like he's just playing as a purebred entry fragger and that's gonna lead you to
Which
think
wasn't even
that
common at that time
right.
anymore, right?
No, right. And he's just like, and honestly, like if you're that guy, like I don't want to devalue what Yakindar was probably doing or thinking at the time, but honestly, if you're the entry fragger, you're going to focus on your first 20, 30 seconds of the round. And you kind of like maybe in practice, if you're at home, you might just like you die, you kind of like glance at your phone, you like kind of like just like you zone out a little bit unless he was purely just thinking in those moments when he died in practice. Okay, how is James going through all of these different elements of the round now that I'm dead? It's like it's hard to stay as active of a listener and a learner if you're not actively participating in the round and you're just sitting back because it's like, oh, round's over. Okay, time to lean back. Just people always just crank their chairs back and just like start leaning back, like, and at home, no one's
Yeah,
going to hold you accountable. And he got good during the online era too, and I don't think they were really boot camping. I remember seeing him on webcam just sitting in his room by himself.
that's a good point, and I do think that's like every player's a little different in that aspect. Some people absorb knowledge very very fast, and some players are, like you said, very one dimensional. It works or it doesn't. They don't think about anything else.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you'd have one of those on every team. You can have one.
You should.
I'm not saying
I think you
Yakindar is
should.
one of those people, but I'm just saying like, yeah, I think like having someone that's just kind of like a soldier is useful. Hey, go do this, and they're just like, all right, boss. Like,
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
but in terms of what you're saying about the honeymoon, so I do believe in the honeymoon phase, but I think there's like two ways it can go. There's the one way where you pick someone up, like you pick one or two players up, and you go in a server and you cram everything that you had set up, strats, for like 3 days, and then you overwhelm them, and then
Yeah.
it actually kind of turns into a negative because you tried to. It was kind of like cramming before an exam a little bit, and it didn't really come naturally. So now they're trying to remember like 40 strats and 30 setups, and they're playing new roles, and they're trying to learn, and it's a very very difficult in those situations for players that aren't highly adaptable. So certain players are going to be fine. They're going to do that system. They're going to remember everything. Other players, especially more one-dimensional players, are going to struggle more. Whereas I feel like if you do the opposite, where a player comes in and you kind of just keep the playbook kind of simple, and you still have your strats and your setups, but you're not doing like, yo, do Navi execute 1, 3, 4, 5. You don't have like 7 different Navi executes or something like.
Yeah.
And you kind of like let the player play his own game for a bit. It's a lot of less stress. Everyone's happy. They're having fun. It's a new roster. If you were kind of bored of CS and competing on the team, like say you've been playing for 10 years, it's a time to kind of like remotivate you a little bit. New roster, new face, maybe you're doing a couple new things. A little bit of the stress
Mm-hmm.
is coming off. You're like, okay, we got a new player. This first event doesn't really matter. It's just like a test
Right.
event. And I think like the positive feelings of like just having a new route. Like people always are happy when assuming they got the player they wanted.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you make a roster move, it's always good vibes. Like for the first 1 to 4 weeks, just like depending on what you're doing, and oftentimes that low pressure, and just like it's weird because Counter Strike is a very like confidence based game, and I think like it's funny how just everyone being in a good mood and having fun can just like help you kind of just like steamroll people
Oh
sometimes.
yeah.
Whereas like you could be doing the same stuff, but it's not the same like environment, and the match feels harder. So it's hard to quantify why it works. It's kind of like if you are on a team and you go to an event and after this event the team is disbanding.
Right.
Um, it's a different way. It's not a honeymoon, obviously. It's like you
The
know
dead team buff.
But like it's just the pressure being like lifted from everyone's shoulders, that helps so much, and I think the honeymoon is like a little bit like that.
Mm-hmm.
Assuming you don't go too wild with like like there's just teams I know where they pick people up and they spend like 6 hours in a server every day, and like people can say, oh, it's a job, blah blah blah, but like at the end of the day, like players can't just sit there and like do homework for that long.
No, no.
Like just from my experience, and people can be like, "Oh, well, you get paid a lot." It's like, you sure, but that doesn't change the fact that it's failed more times than not in my experience, and
Right.
I've seen it fail a bunch. So it's like, you got to kind of like balance out the the amount of work you're doing and kind of like let the team kind of vibe, get a feel for everything, get chemistry, and then kind of like after the first event or two, then start like kind of going harder, expanding the map pool because like every good team knows how to do like a mid control on Mirage or a banana. Like it's not like
Hmm.
these things need to be are like groundbreaking for a
Right.
top team. So yeah, I definitely agree with the honeymoon and you
The
know
the whole like the whole idea of like people grinding to all this server time and just like studying the game and everything like that. It also feels like so many of the players that are not all of them, but a lot of the transcendent players, like Zywo just did an interview recently for HLTV where he talked about how he didn't really even watch demos,
yeah
and I was just shocked. I was like, so you've just drilled this so many times because you've just played so much that
yeah
now what looks to us like practice of like, oh, this is the reaction here, this is the reaction there. It's just like that's probably just purely because he's just scrimmed and played matches and pugs so many times he just knows what's coming next. Because I mean, he's so impressive because he's always where he needs to be 2 seconds before he
oh
needs to
yeah.
be there.
No, I agree. That's a good point, and it's very interesting because I actually struggled with that during my career and on different teams because I was always the guy that I would like to watch demos, and I would always try to like be somewhat ready. And whether I was a caller or not, like let's say I was playing with Sean and Sean was the main caller and I was the pit player, I would watch. I'm not going to watch the whole demo for everything, but I would watch like my spot. I would put the camera above pit on Inferno, and I'd be like, how's their lane take? How's their wrap take? Like what
Yeah.
nades are they throwing? Just so I'm ready. Like because every once in a while that third flash comes and you weren't expecting and you die. So I would like know okay they're throwing three flashes, then I can turn. So I'd be if I was Belk, it would be like boom 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 boom, and then I'd be like okay now I can swing and just do whatever I want. Um, but the negative of that is okay, and then they don't throw two, and then a guy runs around the corner and just kills me. And
Yeah, yeah.
I look like a bot because I'm just like still looking in the wall, and people are
Yep.
like, "Semphis is a noob. Why? What? Are you, It's just, and you're like, dude. So like for me, it's like there's a fine line of like the demo can hurt you or it can help you, but you have to be very careful like how you're doing your prep work, and it's honestly a little bit of an art like to get at a high level because all good players are understanding that they're being studied. They're all under the Kerrigan's not stupid. Like he
Hmm.
knows that people are watching his demos and they have an idea of how they're playing. So I think like players like Zywoo, and I know Simple was the same way. I don't think he watched a ton of demos either, but you play enough, you get the good vibe of the game, and it's like when you're better, sometimes I think it's good to just be better.
Yep.
And not kind of fill your brain with these other things that are gonna maybe second guess your normal play. Like it's funny because like people might disagree with this, but if you watch a demo and like, let's say they go up connector on Mirage, like let's say they molly the end of cat so the cat guy can't peek, they smoke window, they go con with three guys, and you watch a demo. So say you're Zywoo and you normally are like, okay, when they smoke off window, I'm going to go and op con. Like, let's just say that's his rotation. Well, when you three guys are going up there and the ops on catwalk holding you, maybe you're like, okay, I'm not going to peek this because I know what they're doing. But if he
Hmm.
doesn't know what they're doing, he just peeks, gets a kill, falls back,
Yeah,
and it's
yeah,
like, you
yeah.
know what I mean? Like it's
Uh-huh.
like yeah, maybe he should have died, but he's Zywoo, so like he's
Exactly.
hitting the shot, like he's not missing. So it's like it's really weird, and I wonder if in a few years, like I know Soham and other people are doing programs with like crazy algorithms and stuff. If there's going to be like more like fine tuning of like preparing people for things, but not like screwing them over like a bit,
Hmm.
because I feel like maybe Blade is good at that. Um, like
Right.
Navi's very like Blade seems to be a very good coach, but I've never heard anything. Like I don't know what he does. So it's like from the outside, I believe he's good, but like
Yeah, yeah.
you know,
I think you could probably just look at I think two stark contrasting players that probably embody this like do they watch demos or not is kind of maybe during 2021 or something like that, Shiro versus Simple, where Simple was just breaking the game. Like, they throw their normal mid execute nades for or mid control nades on Mirage, And like, they molly bottom con, they flash high mid, they smoke window from spawn, they smoke cat from spawn, but he just jumps into valley, dodges a flash, shoots one guy, then just jumps through their own molly at bottom con, just gets out with like 40 health, but he's got a 5v4 now, and then he just takes another peek. Like Shiro would just be like, I don't think that's safe.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
watched the demos. I don't want to go there. I don't
yeah,
think that's good for me. And I would actually frequently bring this up back then, years ago, was that like Shiro is probably, of all the top operas in the world, the most easily disturbed by utility. Where it's just like, if he doesn't think that this is a 5 out of 10 difficulty shot, he kind of wants to avoid it.
yeah.
He wants to create as many easy opportunities as he can, and he was really good at it. Like I would almost just say he was like kind of like he was just more device inspired as opposed to Simple, who's like, I know what they're gonna do. I'm gonna break the game because my mechanics are better than what their nades are.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Simple's just like fearlessly like it's almost like yeah, like it's like in some of those situations like there's no way you knew their strat, right? Like you must have just done this, and like when you're
Yeah.
good enough to finesse every situation, then you're Simple, but like you're one of a kind type thing,
Yeah.
because like even Zywoo doesn't do some of the stuff. Like you can make an argument that Zywoo's better, that's fine, but the things Simple did were a lot different than
Yeah.
everyone else. Like for people that haven't watched Counter Strike from all the way, dude, when he was playing with fucking Zeus and Edward, he got they were I don't know if it was 0 like 12 or 1-12 in Pro League. They literally had like 1 or 0 wins in the whole league, and he had the best stats in the entire league with one win. Like so,
Right.
like that's just the guy he was, and he was like, and they're granted their losses were close. There were a lot of 16-13, 16-14s, OT losses, like, but they were close because of him.
Right.
So like, this guy was doing shit that like I've just personally never seen before.
Hmm.
Maybe you could make an argument for like the Donk Katowice run, which was absolutely absurd. Like,
Yeah.
that's probably the best performance I've ever seen rifle wise. I don't think like you can even.
That, I mean, I literally messaged you after it, and I was like, okay, you're watching a lot of his demos. Do you think this guy, could he be cheating? Like, is
Yeah,
there
like
any chance? Like, because this is unbelievable. Yeah, I couldn't believe what I was seeing in that
yeah,
one.
it's just like, and when you watch him, it just like he just looks like all his bullets just hit them and they just die. Like
Yeah.
they just
Yeah.
it just looks so easy. Um,
Yeah.
like he just kind of
I,
like sprays two guys down. It's just like always two. Like it's never one and traded. It's just two every
oh,
time.
right.
Like
I, I've tried telling people lately that, if you have a slightly less trained eye, one way you could watch Donk is just type third person in console while you're watching him and just see his movement, because he's just always doing these little like crouch uncrouch little slide, like I did the donk slide video and stuff, and he's just doing all these little things to be so hard to hit. And I noticed so many of his fights are a little messier than other people's, where it's like he's spraying through the corner of a wall. He does that a lot, where it's
yeah,
just he's crouch sliding away, and then he's usually catching the opponent in some position where they're slightly out of position, but he's almost covering his angle. And he's just, I would just say, of anybody in terms of he might not actually even kill people always the fastest with the best aim, but he's definitely the hardest person to kill.
yeah.
If somehow you could translate his skill to being an anchor, he'd be the guy that stays in pit for like 20 seconds while the whole site take is happening, and you're like, how is this guy even alive anymore?
Yeah. No, it's actually a good point, because another player that has I'm not gonna like his movie is just annoying. Is if you know CXCI,
Oh yeah,
like
yeah.
Danny is like no offense, Danny, but like you're not as good as Donk. I'm sorry. But like he was one of those players that people get annoyed with, because like he's just like, it's like he runs out, he sees you, and then he runs a couple extra steps, and then he slide sprays, and it's just like it's just different than everyone else. So people
Yeah.
get frustrated because they're like, dude, I don't know, he's so like hard to hit, or like the movement. It almost feels like you got noobed.
Yeah.
You almost feel like you're like, dude, this fucking idiot kill. Like it's like you're frustrated when you
Right.
die, because the movement. So, and Donk isn't quite like that, obviously, but like movement can definitely be like a lot more valuable than people think in Counter Strike, because a lot of people. I mean, I do this. You see someone, you stop, you shoot. Like, but
Yeah.
sometimes you should maybe run an extra step or two, or take like a double burst and then quickly like strafe. Like some people are very good at those the little movements and little micro adjustments. Like, um,
Oh, totally. Yeah.
But
It's
yeah,
it's something that like you kind of have to commit to practicing to learn when those moments are, as opposed to in a demo you can learn what are good nades, what's good positioning, what's a good reaction. But the micro of taking all of these fights is it kind of is where the skill really comes from on a player by player basis. Because you're right, like, yeah, no, I'll do that too. If I see somebody from almost like medium range or less, I'm also probably just committing to my spray every time. But some pros will just like two like one like they'll like shoot two bullets, then strafe again two bullets or something. It's like instead of committing to the spray, and I'm almost like, I feel like you could kill him faster than that, but I guess you're becoming harder to hit, and I guess you're less trade. It's easy. It's more difficult for them to trade you if you play like that. Like there's all these just like little ways to take engagements which seem to kind of counter each other, and it's probably like the closest thing to like a rock paper scissors that Counter Strike has is like, are you gonna wide swing? Are you gonna crouch swing? Are you gonna like try to slide back? Are you gonna like just like jiggle around the corner? Like there's so many ways you can take it, all within the framework of like, is this even a good macro decision to begin with?
right. And then and then the player that you're shooting, like some people are bad at shooting moving targets. Some people are really good at tracking. Like a Liege has amazing tracking, like probably
Yeah.
some of the best in the game. So like if you're playing for someone with Liege and you try to crouch rate, he's probably just going to spray you down. But
Yeah, he'll win the spray. Yeah.
but like if you're playing for someone like Nico, he might tap and you might actually like screw up his mechanics because he's trying to be really accurate. And it's very annoying to like one tap someone that's like crouch sliding
Yeah.
from a far distance. But yeah, no, for sure. Which I guess we should also say like how have you been feeling about the G2 lineup?
The G2 lineup, I mean, it's one of those lineups where it's almost like I have to I feel like I can so I wasn't a fan of Snacks because from watching Gamer Legion, I just was like, this team seems kind of like a mess. And some people have kind of relayed this to me that, oh, it's because they're switching players, and some people aren't that experienced tier one CS, so they don't know all the protocols. They're forgetting nades and stuff like that. I'm like, I mean, I can give you a little bit of a pass for that. But when you just flat out have the worst T side round win percentage in all of tier one CS, like all the top 20 teams for a whole 6 months, and you have also a pretty good CT side, by the way. And like then it kind of just fed into my own narrative, which was that I think Snacks is probably pretty overrated because as an individual, the glory days of Snacks were like he outbrains you, he pushes around a smoke. He was almost like the smoke
He
criminal
was a
before
rat.
Stewie was. Yeah. He was
Like
so sneaky, so cerebral in so many of his plays that it kind of distracted you from the fact that, oh yeah, this guy does have insane mechanics too. And there were brief stretches of time where he was the best player in the world in CS:GO. Like I thought for maybe, I don't know, 3 months of what 2019 was it, that I was like, is Snacks the best player in the world right now? Like there's just these times where he's just dominating everybody because he's just in a flow state that nobody can match. And I think people did conflate that his cerebral individual play with being a good in-game leader, because I didn't see that on Gamer Legion. I didn't see that he was a good in-game leader at all. And if we're talking about like fluke majors, it's more of a fluke that Gamer Legion qualified than Navi won it, because they technically weren't even supposed to qualify because Nine Pandas made it over them, but Nine Pandas didn't secure their visas. Like, oh no, he got Gamer Legion to the major. It's like, guys, are you forgetting he actually lost that match? But it's because they didn't get visas that he even got into the major. Like
right,
he kind of
yeah.
had a failure of a 6 months, and then he got brought in, and so I had these big concerns with him. But the thing is, like, Mobs is amazing. Like Mobs is one of the most sensational
Yeah.
entry fraggers that I've seen for a while. And so even when the strats are just super basic, like smoke top mid, smoke window, guys, we're just gonna do a B split. Like two of us go apartments, three of us are going up cat. They just win. They just plow through people
A lot
because
of
they're better at
talent.
shooting.
Yeah. No, and your point to him on Gamer Legion, you can even go further back to his days on Virtus Pro and stuff. And the he called, Neo called, and Taz called. They would go through
Yeah,
like
it cycled
a
through it.
little cycle. They seemingly usually did the best at the start with Neo, and then I think later on Taz actually might have had better success. But I think Taz was using a lot of Neo's things, right? So it's like when you have all your protocols set and your roster's the same and you change a caller, you're not throwing everything away. You're just kind
Right.
of like maybe calling in a different order, and you might be throwing in some more faster strats. Like you might obviously everyone is going to call a little different, but it's not like they're just throwing all their protocols away and being like, "Oh, Taz is calling ground up." So like a lot of their stuff was built already, and then they would switch their offer a lot. Neo would offer a bit, then Snack. So like,
Yeah, yeah.
the only reason I bring that up is because I never felt like when Snacks called they were like better than when Taz or Neo was calling. In fact, I'd even argue that it might be worse. Um,
Right.
so then you bring up all the way to Gamer Legion, like you said, with the poor T sides in the top 20. It's like, sure, you can make the argument like, okay, his players are not as good. Like with Monacy, I mean, like you said, you got that firepower. It's like, how do you even know if the guy's calling good or not? Like,
I know, I
like
know.
but like, yeah, like it's like you could always say because like as a caller myself, yeah, when I have smarter, better teammates, I can call differently than
Right.
when I have younger, inexperienced players. So like, I definitely sympathize with that, but I just like truly did not understand the move because I'm like, at the end of the day, why not just keep Hooksy at that?
Yep.
Like because statistically they're not that different. I think Snacks might be marginally better.
He's like better by the eye test, but statistically, it's very similar. And
that.
Snacks played more active and better spots. He
That's
got
why
set up
that's why I
more.
said marginally. Like if you're good, like it's
Yeah,
like I do like in my heart, I believe that Snacks is better.
yeah. As an individual,
When I
yeah,
watch him, I do think he's better. But like you said with the stats, like they're pretty much the same.
yeah.
Um, I will say that 1.6 players. I don't know where Hooksy came from, so maybe you are a 1.6 player, but are pretty good with spacing and trading. Like that's like
Mhm.
that was our forte. If you've played CS 1.6, like that's all we cared about was just proper spacing, hitting sites. So like maybe playing with Stu and Stu being one of those players that is really good at trading and creating space. Maybe that's one of the things they were looking for. Maybe they were just like Hooksy doesn't really have that like same level of understanding. And I don't mean to be negative, like I'm just guessing here. And like cuz something happened after that Dallas win, like in
Right,
their heads, like something clicked where they needed something different. Obviously, Nexa was playing poorly, and I mean, it just made sense to
right.
make that change. But yeah, I don't. There's so many variables here, but I just like to me, I was like, I would have just kept Hooksy and waited for a better caller in the future. Or
Hmm.
if you're gonna get Snacks, I would have made Hooksy the coach or an analyst or something
That too. Hmm.
like I'm not trying to hate on Taz or anything. It's just like Hooksy clearly helped them in Dallas. Like he's obviously a smart guy. He knows all the players. He knows all of them. Like I would maybe he doesn't want to be an analyst or a coach yet. That's always something that happens sometimes. But I honestly think he would have been better in that role if they're going to make the change. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I'm not convinced on Snacks, but part of me feels like he was cheap. He was a
Mm.
cheaper option, and they'll probably be on the lookout for a potential caller that opens up in the future, assuming they do really, really, really well. I think
Yeah, yeah.
that's my guess. But
It's possible. I don't know how easy it's going to be though. I almost okay. Well, the kind of more sinister angle of like the conspiracy here is just that I feel like Taz, because he knew there was some flack around him. Like I was raising up a little bit of a ruckus of like, is this like this guy doesn't seem qualified? That's nothing really seems like it's working. Like even when he was the IGL of like honorous for a while, it's just like they did absolutely nothing with him there. And it kind of felt like just he was signed on as the coach because he has a really storied legacy. And I kind of feel like pulling Snacks in, Taz had to be a part of that idea in some form. Like even if they weren't best friends or even if they kind of had a bit of a falling out, he probably brought him in and then they can kind of buddy up. And it feels like now it's going to be harder to replace the coach or replace the in-game leader because they're both probably sort of in a pact that we are going to have each other's back on these things. Like we want to make sure we're still on this team at the end of next year, making the G2 salary
that's true.
regardless.
Yeah.
So
The,
I'm yeah.
and for anyone listening, he's not wrong. Like there are that happens in teams where you get little cliques formed. And it might not be a clique in a negative sense where they're like causing a disturbance, but there's just an understanding like we're a package. Like like try cutting Hunter.
Right.
See how it goes for you.
Mhm.
Um
Exactly.
So like, hey Nico, we're gonna like he's no okay. Like
Yeah.
what do you say? Like there's certain players who'd be like if Zaiwu doesn't want to like cut someone, like what you're gonna make him
Right.
like some orgs might, but I would guess that most are gonna side with the Simples, Zaiwus, like Nikos of the
Yeah.
world, just because they're so you want to keep them happy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely think you have like a point there. But for me, moving on to Mulbs, awesome pickup. I'm like so happy that someone actually did it because I don't stream a lot, but when I stream, I often was saying like, why is Complexity or Liquid not going for this guy? I wasn't even thinking
Yeah.
G2. Like I honestly, I'm very happy for him that he got on G2 because it's awesome. And anyone that has talked to Mulbs, he's the nicest guy. He's always friendly. He's always happy. He's always smiling. He's always in a good mood except for when Warden throws water on him. No, yeah, actually, even then he thought that was funny. And he trolled him about it. But like, like Mulbs just deserves it. Like honestly, he's from a region that is notoriously hard to
Yep.
make it as a pro too. So like, super happy for the guy. Just can't believe that he just sat on M80 and Liquid and Complexity had the potential to
I
try to do it, and they just left him there. Like it's not a surprise. Anyone that played versus this guy in North America knew. Like you could feel it in the server. Like I was coaching Nouns for super long. Like you could feel it. Mulbs is better.
yeah.
Like, and we'd beat M80 and we beat him. Like it's not like he was like unbeatable, but like you can tell when a player is just like better than the team they're on, and he was
Right.
certainly that for M80, which sucks for them because it always sucks when being like an up and coming team and losing your like superstar kind of player. So I do feel bad for him for that, but at
Mm-hmm.
the end of the day, like yeah, super happy for him. I think he's going to be an awesome addition, and like you were saying with Snacks, honestly, it seems like Snacks is like his bait a lot of times. Like I haven't watched every one of their demos, but I watched a couple, and like Ancient out A, Snacks running out, dies,
Yeah.
Mulbs trades, Mulbs gets another one.
Mm-hmm.
Monacy's just twirling around with an op, just like
Yeah.
shooting people. Like I, to me, when Monacy's on, he's the best player in the world. Like there's like this guy. It's not even. It's different than Donk even because his like his aim is so accurate and fast that like even if he has one health in a 1v2, I believe he can win it.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? And like don't get me wrong, I believe Donk is crazy at farming, but he's not as good in those situations. Like the high pressure 1v2, like he's got
Oh
20
right.
health, like dude Monacy just cracks people. Like I've seen him with one health in a clutch with the guys aiming at him and it's just like jiggle one tap, like, and I'm just like yeah, like it's not even the guy's fault. He just got owned, and he kills people with Tech 9, Deagle, AKM.
Yeah.
Like it's just he does it all. Like he's absolutely insane. Um,
If if I had to just make a prediction on between Monacy and Donk, I feel like Donk can and will get the number one spot for the year, but if we're talking about for the next 3 years, who's going to be a top three player every year, I would take Monacy easily. He's got the brain too. When he has utility in a late round, he always knows this crazy way to use a smoke or a
yeah,
flash or a nade. Like he's got a random molly lineup too that just is like he can unseat the opponents, then he can somehow segment a fight that should feels like it should never be like he'll be in the most unwinnable 2v1 and he'll win it because he did something with utility that I don't see other people do. And it just pushes them out. It unseats them. Or he knows a wall bang with the op that also people aren't using very often. Like, I think he's probably jumped around every map, checked all the penetration on every single
yeah.
surface just to see can he wallbang that because he's just hitting people through stuff I didn't even know, and he's just throwing nades at him. Like, okay, yeah, you really not even grinded the Nard out here ones. You're grinding like subreddits with, or like you're probably on secret discords sharing nades with people that are just
He's
grinding
got
this
a
stuff
team
out.
of Russians just farming him
Yeah,
like
yeah,
spam spots and he's super
yeah.
humble, dude. I talked to him a couple times at events and stuff. He's like, you know what he reminds me? He reminds me of if you watched one of the last Harry Potters, um, the young Voldemort, the
Mm.
Like he's got like the little uniform on, and he's
Yeah.
like talking like better English than me, and he's just
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
he's kind of got that like the haircut and stuff.
Yeah.
Anyways, I just think
Yeah.
it's funny, but like he's super nice though. He's like honestly super nice, and obviously he's got the small arms, so like he can aim extremely fast, which is
True. True. It's
factually the
necessary.
yeah. All these people trying to gain weight, no, just
No.
it's
No.
wrong now. It's wrong.
Right.
You got
Surely you cut.
yeah, just cut until you almost are dying, and then you'll be as good as Donk and Monacy.
You
Um,
need, yeah, it's like you need probably minimal. I think the best way to get good at any game is to actually need your maintenance calories should be as low as
yeah,
possible. Like, because once you get bigger and your maintenance calories is higher, you are unfortunately you are just gonna probably get a little bit fatter like over time. I've always just found like, oh shit, okay, now I'm like, if I'm like 170, 160, 180, whatever, I'm like, I feel like I have to eat so much during the day, and it's just always gonna slog you down. As
yeah,
opposed to the guy that can,
nope,
if a guy can just eat 3 salads a day and be satiated,
yeah,
like he's gonna be better.
yeah. The guy has like toast for breakfast, and then just like games for 10 hours,
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
has like yeah like a salad and goes to
He's way
bed.
more
Like
stable. He's way
yeah,
more level than I ever will be.
probably
Where
doesn't
I'm
even
just
get hungry, dude. Like
no,
he
yeah,
probably plays in a whole tournament day, and then he's just like, "What we eating?" Like
that's what I was like when I was like 15. I just
yeah,
didn't get hungry. I was super skinny. I just didn't grow nearly as much as I probably supposed to because I was just like on the computer all day, and I could grind the most hours at that time of my
dude.
life easily.
When I play with Brax, we'd go to a tournament. We get him a like a big gulp of like Dr Pepper from the
Yeah,
7-Eleven. He'd sip on it all day, wouldn't eat a thing. And like he would never say he's hungry. Sean would ask him so much, like Brax, you need any food? Like you want anything? Because we'd always like he was young, right? So
yeah,
we're gonna buy him like whatever. We're like, don't worry about like the $5 for a Big
for sure.
Mac. You know, like we're just trying to like make him comfortable. And he would never want anything. Like
Right.
he would just drink a like soda and then
That's
frag out.
no, that's honestly what I did. I just was drinking like Sprite all night, all
Yeah.
the time when I was a teenager, and it's just yeah, that's when it's just easy. It's just easy at that point.
It's
You
the
don't, I
Asmon
don't,
goal, dude. You just have like
I
a bunch of just you just drink soda all day and like rot your
yeah,
teeth out of your face.
yeah, exactly, exactly.
um,
But it lets you sit in your chair all day too.
yeah, exactly. And it's energy, right? Sugar's energy, so you're fully energized
Exactly,
all
exactly.
day. No, yeah,
Hmm.
for sure. And like for me, like I kind of agree with you. Like if I was to make a team, I would pick Monacy over Donk. Like,
Yep.
um,
Yeah.
and this is like Donkey's amazing, and if I could, I would have both of them. But like, but
Yeah.
like if you gave me the option, I would honestly just like having a nice stable opera that's like jack of all trades and amazing. I just think is more consistent over like a long period of time, like you're saying, like 2-3 years, because you can already see like that's the point I was going to bring up. Actually, was just like looking at Spirit's downfall here a little bit. They went out pretty quickly. They barely even won rounds.
No, right.
They got
It was sad.
they got owned. And like
Yeah.
to be fair, I have not watched all the games, so it's hard for me. I didn't know exactly what went wrong. I watched like half of them of the total games from these last events. Um,
Hmm.
but for me, like I just looking at some of the games, it just felt like it feels like to me watching Spirit from Katowice to now, they look like they lose a little bit of their like X factor sometimes,
Right.
and they start playing like kind of scared, almost like it's almost like you'll watch like not Donk, like he never really like changes the way he plays, but I'll notice like Zontic, and like it just seems like everyone's like more rigid than they're supposed to be, and like it might be a hard thing to see if you've not watched like a ton of CS, because
Hmm.
there's like kind of like a killer instinct in this game, whereas like as the competition gets harder and the pressure goes up, some people get better, like FaZe, for
Yeah.
example, right? Like sometimes you're like, oh, FaZe is looking okay this tournament, then they make the quarters, then they make the semis, and they just keep getting better. Like the more
Yeah.
pressure,
They power up.
it's like the chaos. They start like winning all these clutches, and like it's like almost like they're getting buffed. Like the harder it gets. Whereas like with them, I feel like Spirit's just in this weird spot where like I'm not sure if they got figured out. Like from your perspective, like do you think they're getting countered hard? Is it like to me, Donk isn't playing worse. He's just like he's still top fragging. Like, but when you lose 16-1, it doesn't really matter. Like
Right. I mean, in their loss versus G2, which I saw way more of, because I kind of figured they would just beat Mongols. I didn't really.
Yeah, that
I
was.
I was kind of confused by that one, but the one versus G2, I guess the Killer Instinct thing is interesting because it's just kind of like if Donk is having an average person's game, it's I just almost feel like Spirit aren't used to it,
Yeah.
and so the fallback plans and everything aren't necessarily there because how often has Spirit won less than 50% of their opening kills? You know, that just doesn't happen to them anymore. And for people like Zontix and people like Magix, they're clutch. Like they can sometimes win a 1v1 or a 1v2, but they're not in a weird way. It's almost like as a system, I don't expect a Spirit system to win the 4v5 unless they're getting the immediate trade. That's one thing that they would do with Donkwell, or even sometimes obviously Chopper runs in, or sometimes it is Magix actually. It's like someone else sometimes goes first, Donk trades them, or they trade Donk out, and then they have a 4v4, but like the pure kind of raw or 4v5s, they just seem like it's kind of like lazy. Like I remember just like a re-clear mid on Mirage where they just all kind of peak one by one. And it was like, yeah, when you say Killer Instinct, it's you kind of think like either that could mean like just do it together, communicate and just swing on mid together, or just one guy gets the one kill on that first peak and then they all dip out instead of them just kind of like slowly feeding themselves like lemmings running off a cliff.
Yeah, because at a high level, killer instinct is important because you don't want to be second guessing yourself, right? Like
No.
you don't want to be like, yo guys, should we clear top mid? And then someone goes, ah, no, let's go back to
Yeah.
B. And like it's too much.
Yeah.
Like you either do it or you don't. You what I usually said is like someone makes a suggestion unless you really think it's terrible, just do it and then talk about
Yep.
it after. Because like for anyone listening, if you're on a team like it's the same thing as throwing a flash for someone. Like you should never have to ask someone to throw a flash for you. They should know when to throw it. So like for example, if you're playing overpass and your default B site and you planted, you can ask for them to hold a flash for you. That's fine. If someone's in like the water, like by the blue door, if someone's over in that area, you can be like, "Do you have a flash?" And they'll be like, "Yeah, I have a flash holding." You don't want to ask for it. They need to be like ready just to throw it at the time. Like you can
Yep.
ask them, like if you want it to become earlier, like you can ask them. I'm not saying it's bad, but like generally by the time you say like the retaking and then like you'll flash for me, like well they've
I
scaled
know.
fast and it's just it ends up killing you more than it helps you. And obviously every situation is a little different, right? So I'm generalizing here, um,
Yeah.
but yeah,
That's That's true though. That's why Astralis obviously were so good in their era. You know, it's like every single one of them, 1 through 5, have the idea of what is the best utility right now to help my teammate out. That's something that it's when you kind of come up in this space or have time to examine it enough to really consider fundamentals of every it's fundamentals, but I think that almost makes it feels too simple. It's kind of like the prescience of how to like what is the fight that's going to happen next on the map and how do I support that even if I'm not the one taking that fight.
yeah, you have
And
to put
yeah.
yourself into their spot, like their feet,
Yep.
and then like be like, okay, what would I do? What would I need in
Yep.
this situation, and then do what they need. Um, Especially if you're someone like an opper or a passive lurker that's coming in late. Like it's very important for you to have good utility usage if you're not like during the hit, like because you probably are the only one with anything left at a certain point. Um, but I was just gonna say like to your point about like them not being used to, not getting the opening frag. Sometimes I wonder like maybe it doesn't happen to them much in scrims.
Right. Right.
Like maybe they're just like maybe when they go into some of these matches, they're like this is the first time or the few times they experience like, all right, Donk just died in mid again on Mirage. Now they're in a 4v5, and like
Yeah.
they're like, okay, well normally it would be a 3v4 for us.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
know, like sometimes I wonder because like in my career I've had times where we've done really well in scrims, and then you play a match and things go wrong and it's confusing because these things never went wrong in scrims. Like for example, if you ever scrimmed and you won both pistols, like you're just demons on pistols, and then you play a
Yeah.
match and then you lose both pistols, it can change a lot like of the dynamic of what you're used to doing because you're just used to farming pistols. Like some teams are just like demons in scrims with
Yeah.
pistols. Like you just have this guy that gets like 4 Glock kills every T pistol, and then you play 2 matches and you lose every T pistol, and then you're like, Okay, well, you kind of lose your
Yeah,
buffer a little bit.
right.
But yeah, so
I think that's why a lot of teams also when they go into tournaments, if they say yeah, if they say scrims are going well, it's like what your first plan in the round's going well because that's not good. You know, you if and then the teams like remember when Gambit won the 2017 major, they're like we're losing every scrim. It's like
yeah,
because then you're now prepared for worst case scenario of every single round, and if one of your players or two of your players are just fragging like 5% better instead of 10% worse, like sometimes the scrim makes it like I don't know. Some people are scrim gods, so they
yeah.
obviously just like they're going to do so well there, and it almost nerfs your team for the live environment of oh god, what happens next if plan A doesn't go well. And I think Spirit have kind of gotten away with some of the tournaments they play where Donk is just transcendent, or like which happened in the Blast Spring Finals, and it also happened at Katowice. Obviously, he was so good. It's almost it just it's not a realistic way. It's not a realistic game state for you as Magics to be like, well, we're always up 4v3, so
You
I know what
can't.
to do.
I just at the end of the day, to me, you can't rely on your entry fragger to carry you forever. Like,
No,
like
no, no, never.
it's gonna be too inconsistent. And like looking at them, I see them do strats, and don't get me wrong, it's Donk and it's been working, but they'll send him out first on out of hut on nuke, and I'm just kind of like,
Yeah.
maybe send Chopper out for first.
Right, right.
You know, like I do think they might need to start modifying some of the way. Like, don't get me wrong, great that it worked, awesome that it worked, but I think it's time to go back to the drawing board and make some modifications and treat him more like a star. Great, it worked for half a year, but people are catching on and they're getting ready for what's coming. Another thing is I saw someone on Reddit, sorry I don't remember your name, was saying that they actually have one of the lowest like flash assists out of the top teams. Like
Mm,
so like they're not really flashing Donk in a ton either. Like they're not setting him up
mm,
as well as you might think, and they're actually having. But that does give you more utility for late rounds. So when you have the site, it is easier to hold it when you have more utility. So it's a little bit of a double edged sword there. But
yeah.
I'm just saying like yeah, start helping him more because it doesn't matter how good you are if people are ready for you to run out a hut and they're up in Mustang and the rafters and they're ready for the flashes. Like he's just gonna die, dude. Like
Right.
it's like going out first of halls on the old Inferno. Like the new Inferno's a little easier; you can just like run off and drop. But like
Yeah, yeah.
the old Inferno, if you were the first one out, I always said like you're dead. Your job is to just like if you get a kill, we're gonna win. Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
if you die, your job is to give us all the comms. Like, when you're first guy out, you either full hard clear the balcony, or you if you're a higher sense, you might be able to quickly look left first and then do it. But like most people just charge and look at the balcony. Your job is to clear like two or three spots and tell us exactly where the setup is, so the second and third guy can trade.
Yep, yep.
But that should not be a donk rule. Like there's certain sites where Hall's on Inferno, B on Mirage. If I see donk going first, I'm pissed because
Oh,
I'm because
yeah.
I'm just like, dude, going out B on Mirage first is a death sentence. It doesn't matter
Yeah.
how good you are. There's like 7 spots they can be playing. There's flashes raining down, and I understand like he's amazing, but I do think like from me watching, I think they need to start catering a little bit more to him and maybe sacrificing um, Chopper in some of those roles. But
Yeah, you can't and also it's just at the in the game versus G2, like Nico's in form right now too. And if you're sending an informed donk, like a good, still a very good donk, but against an informed Nico, that buff you had versus practically all the other riflers in the world is pretty negated. And
yeah,
like that's why like the top S tier 1 CS is a little bit different than like tier 1.5. I guess it's just like you have to even game like your superstar player can be countered by other superstars who are also feeling themselves that day. Like when it's the Zywoo, Nico, Donk, Monacy, Roulette, or of like who's feeling it right now, you're not always going to have the better player. And that's I think why people would get kind of flustered with like Hooksy, where yeah, you have two of the best players in the world, but if either of them for whatever reason are just going to put up a 1.15 rating, you still need to find ways to win rounds. Like that's
oh, 100%.
because you're not getting the 1.4 every single time.
Well, I think you make a good point, and I think a lot of people don't realize it too. Is like we'll just use two teams as an example. So we'll have Spirit playing G2. So if Spirit's playing G2, like you said, he's going versus Prime Nico right now. Like maybe not Prime Nico, but he's really good right
He's
now.
really good. Yeah,
Like he
yeah,
definitely elevated his game from the start of the year. Start of the year, I honestly was like, dude, CS2 is not treating him well, but he seems to have rebounded and now he's dominating again. But like, okay, let's say in theory, Donk gets by Monacy's op, then he's fighting Nico, then he's fighting
yeah.
Mulps. Like
Yep.
those three players, I don't care if you think that Donk is better than them all. It's Counter Strike, and Mulbs can still rip his head off. Nico can still rip his
Yep.
head off at a high rate, at a very high rate. Versus, like you were saying, if it's another team, like say they're playing Complexity, their best player is Elige. Donk is better than Elige. Maybe he's
Yeah.
not double as good. Like, and don't get me wrong, Elige is one of the best riflers in the world, but Donk is better than Elige right now.
Mm-hmm.
So the battle becomes Elige versus Donk. Donk wins that battle more times than Elige wins it, and who's left to fight him? Like
Right.
now they have Hulzer, Floppy, like
Yeah. Yeah.
it's
Exactly.
just like he's just gonna farm, like just
Yeah.
because. And I don't mean to be negative towards these players, but like Donk is a generational talent.
Yeah.
This is not a normal player. It's not like he's playing versus like someone playing well on Virtus Pro or something, where like the other players like Floppy can just shoot him in the head and kill him. Like
Right.
Donk is next level amazing, right?
Right.
So I definitely agree with you there that like once you start getting to the high top 5 teams, it's like even Mouse Sports, dude. Like even Mouse
Right.
Sports, like there's a lot of aimers on that team, and none of them are better than Donk, but they're good enough to take him out. Like they're good enough to win 1v1s versus him. Um,
Yeah. With CS, I feel like it's worth explaining. Just like, yeah, I'd like Donk to me is 10%. Let's just say, I don't know. I'm kind of pulling a number out of my ass, but let's just say he's 10% better than Elige. That still means that Elige is going to win 45% of the fights.
yeah,
It's just that he like Donk's going to win 55% of the fights versus Elige. He's going to choose the right angle, choose the right timing. His aim is a little bit better. His movement gives these little extra percentages mount up, but you can't always enable all of your advantages in every single fight because the game just you're presented different situations that you're trying to manipulate as much as you can with your mechanics, but at the end of the day it's like if he has the superior angle and the better gun, like he has the AK, you have the M4, you might even you might have shot him in the head faster, but you just had the worst gun that's at time.
yeah.
So can't always win everything, or even like a little bit of nade damage. Obviously, that could change everything
Get
too.
caught by a flash. Like
Yeah.
there's tons of ways that you can die. But no, I definitely like my prediction. The Spirit's not going to be this bad. Like
No.
they're like I do think this is a little bit of an anomaly, so I'm not willing to freak out yet. But part of me feels like there is going to be a change in the future to this roster. Like, I'm gonna guess, unfortunately, because I like them as Zontix probably.
Hmm.
Um, I don't think you can get rid of Chopper. I don't think the org is going to get rid of
No.
Chopper. There's no callers in this game. They don't exist. For all you up and coming players, if you're not a prodigy, call. Learn to be a caller. Like
Right.
so
Yeah.
many of you guys want to be the fucking James Bond or John Wick. I'm old. I said James Bond, but I guess I should say John Wick is
So
probably
people know it. People get
yeah,
it. People
yeah,
get
yeah.
it.
Like everyone wants to be the star, and don't get me
I
wrong, I was like
yeah.
that too, dude. Everyone wants to be the guy, dude. It's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun to be the guy, but not everyone's the guy.
No, no.
Yeah.
It
So
it's yeah, no. When I was trying to make a name for it myself, like in terms of just like when I was trying to raise my stock in the scene at all, I kind of just took up calling because I also knew I was like, I can't dedicate 2 hours to mechanics training every day. It's just I'd even just rather watch the demos too. So it's picking your spots in so many ways.
yeah, and like you're realistic. Like if you're not going to put in that time to do the aim training, to deathmatch, to play a million pugs, and really like consistently do that for a long period of time, like you're not going to be the star player. Like
No.
if you're like when I was in 1.6, I was actually at the end of 1.6. For anyone who was curious, like I was on the best team in NA with Brax, and I was the top fragger until Brax finally got like a little more experience, and then he was better than me. I mean, he was better than me before, but there is an experience factor when you're going to lands, and he's 13. He had a little ways to catch up, but he did. And I played so much deathmatch, so much bots. Like there wasn't all the aim
Yeah.
training, but like it wasn't like an accident that I was good. So I just prioritized like mechanics a lot. But if you're not able to do that, like you're in school or whatever, then be a caller, be a support player, and really learn to help your teammates and be like we were talking about before. Like being able to flash people, win 1v2s and stuff for your team, like those things. Yeah, they're not appreciated by the community, but they're appreciated by the high level players. So if you're on a team and someone asks about you and you've actually been a good teammate, good comms, they're gonna give you praise, man. They're gonna be like, yeah, he doesn't have the best stats, but like he's helps a lot. Like I've told people that before about ex players I played with. I'm like, yeah, he's not like an aim god, but he's gonna be like a great teammate. Like he's gonna help you guys. So yeah, just something to think about. But one thing I was gonna ask you about is what do you think about mouse sports like
Mm.
as a team? Because I feel like they're they're on the verge of being great. I don't think they're quite there yet. They kind of remind me of Astralis.
Yep.
Like
Yep.
before Astralis like made their run, like everyone on the team is good. There,
Hmm.
no one. I mean, I guess you can make arguments for like Jim Fat or whatever, um, being like their star fragger or whatever. But like, no one's like Nico or Donk on the team, but they're all really good.
Yep.
Exertion's insane. So like to me, it feels like maybe nerves, experience, a little bit of choking, like here or there. Um,
Oh yeah. The mouse sports to me, the way I've characterized them is that when they're playing at their A game, as long as they're, hitting a reasonable amount of shots, and unfortunately we've never seen this in an arena, but it's been in studios. This year I think the best and most kind of beautiful CS has been played by mouse sports. So that's kind of my praise for them overall as a team. And that's because I feel like they have a very singular vision in rounds. I feel like I'm sure they all, they all give comms in here and there, but I think that when Shuhei makes a call, everybody just drops what they're doing and then they just completely commit to that instead of people sort of like lingering or sort of like
yeah,
kind of calling their own number too much. Like they have full faith that what he says in the mid round is going to go. And I've literally felt like I've seen off of just probably a call, like you just see all of the arrows on the radar turn at the same time and start moving in a direction, and it's like I don't see anybody move like that in a macro sense other than them. Everybody has like all the top teams, like FaZe especially, just everybody has maybe a little too much autonomy. They're all just kind of like lingering, they're all kind of hanging out, and then they just don't trade each other. But when Shuhei's like, okay guys, we're just going to crunch this site now on any map, then boom, they do it, and they can do it so well. Probably that can get them into trouble against some of the top players, but they've also had a really good track record against some of the top players in the world. Like they've beaten G2 in studio at this point. They've beaten Donk. They've beaten Spirit twice. And that's always because it just feels like all those guys can kill you one-on-one, but they can't kill you two-on-one. And yeah, you already mentioned this. Like Donk's better than everybody on mouse sports, but he's only like 12% better.
yeah,
So he's not always going to just nail 1, 2, 3 kills in a row. Usually the second guy just trades because of good spacing. And also flat out, Exertion can beat him in a gunfight from time to time. It's not impossible.
yeah. You kill Jimmy, and Exertion peeks out and one shots you. They're not
Yeah.
missing those shots, so it's like Dong's better, but like you can like it's a team game, right? Like there's like
Yep.
you've crossfires, you've trades, and Mousesports are very like calculated in a lot of their decisions. A lot of their setups make a lot of sense. I really like the way they play, like you're saying. It is funny that you mentioned like people lingering. It's like when you're like, "Yo, guys, let's hit B," and then some guy on the team's like, "You know what? I'm gonna flank," and then like another guy's like, "I'm gonna prod mid first," and
Yeah,
then
I
and then
know.
and then
It's
it's
like,
like only
please.
two of you are going B, and like
Yeah.
one guy's at the other side of the map, one guy's like, walking out mid, and you're just
I'm gonna lurk out A ramp. It's like, what? Why?
yeah,
What's the
just
point?
come and hit the site with us, dude. Like,
Everyone wants to be the hero and the main character at the same time.
yeah, I've definitely like been on teams where that was an issue where like you just
Yeah.
you just have people, or I've even done it where it's just like
Oh yeah.
you think
Yeah.
you think you have a like a read or like a lurk or something, and it's like nah, you should just listen to the caller because at the end of the day, it's just gonna work out better that way
Yeah.
on average. Like sure, every once in a while you'll win the round, but
Yeah.
for the majority of the time, like just listen to your caller. Be a good soldier. But yeah, I think I just keep watching Mouse Sports, and every once in a while they lose or something. And I'm like, man, like you guys are just you're so close, but
Yep.
they just seem like a little bit. I don't even want to say they're inconsistent. It's just like they just like lose random games that kind of like really hurts them. Like at
Yeah.
the wrong time of a tournament, and then they end up facing someone even harder. Like they don't really have a good track record versus Vitality.
Right.
um, so I don't know. Maybe it's a little bit of luck. Like maybe they just got to get a better draw to like to a final sometimes. Because,
Yeah.
but I
That could be
definitely
it.
think they're my like team that I'm looking forward to for the next like year. I think they're gonna eventually break off these I don't want to say mediocre because they make far runs, but like they're just not winning. Like they're not making like all podium finishes at least.
Right.
Um,
It feels like, yeah, if I do a power ranking, I almost the weird thing about them is like I would probably this entire year I would have never put Mouse as my number one. You pick any day of the year, I wouldn't
no,
say Mouse is my number one in a power ranking, but they'd always be third, you
yeah,
know? Like as other teams have their fluctuations in form, I can usually make a safe bet that Mouse is going to be a top six team at every tournament. Like they're going to make playoffs of almost everything. That's what's good about them.
yeah. I just think it's like their lineup. Like they just like they don't really have any weak links in their CD sides, especially like their CD sides are very strong. Yeah, I mean we'll see how they do in the future because obviously we still have like a bunch of tournaments left. It's kind of like the fight for who can make top one, I guess, for like Donk, Zaiwu, and
Honestly, yeah.
Mondesi, and then like I guess technically Nico might be able to make a run if he
It's
overperforms,
possible
and
now. Yeah.
he has to keep up this level, and then Donk has to fail. But I don't know if Nico's going to be able to like outfrag Mondesi consistently to the end of the year. So I still feel like the highest Nico can get is second.
Hmm.
Like to me, but I don't know if you kind of agree. Like I just like unless Mondesi really drops the ball and it becomes the Nico and Bulb show or something.
We have a real chance here again where I think was it 2022 maybe or something where it was like the last 5 months of the year I felt like Nico was the best player, but the first seven, I think it might have been the same year he was trying to op or something like that. And it was just like he kind of messed up the beginning of the year so much. So technically the whole year went to Zaiwu, but it was like, he was damn close. And there was definitely a
Yeah,
stretch where he was better than Zaiwu. It's just that these awards are based off of the entire year, not the second half. So it's going to
right.
be really, really hard.
And his first
I'll,
half was fairly poor. Like
yeah,
for
that's
Nico levels. Like
poor for being number one in a race that's this tight between the top three.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. No, for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess
So
we'll see what happens
SnapTap
there.
helped him though. He's coming back now.
Oh yeah, you want to talk about SnapTap? So you have the keyboard.
I have
So
the Wooting. I have the Wooting 60 HE plus. I've been using the SOCD feature pretty much since they gave me it. Disclaimer: they did give me it for free. So yeah.
so you have to buy it now. No.
Yeah.
Okay. First off, I want to state that I think it's very silly that you can buy a keyboard and you can't use binds for the same
I know.
effect in the
I
game.
know.
I don't
Yeah.
care if it's legal or not, like the keyboard. I just think it's like it just logically doesn't make sense to me. Like,
Right.
um, so I would like that addressed, and I have heard that Razer. I don't know if Wooting did, but I know Razer contacted a lot of these TOs and asked them if this keyboard would be legal, and they got yeses, which leads me to believe that it's not going to be banned. Because I mean, if you're Razer, I'd be pissed if like I'm like, yo, we're making this keyboard. Is this going to be legal to use? And then everyone's like, yeah, dude, that'll be legal. And then you come out with the product, and they're like,
Yeah.
JK, like, so I mean, I think Valve might need to get involved in this one.
Someone just tweeted this like hours ago or whatever. Was that the Valve now can detect if you're using a SnapTap or SOCD feature, which I think is probably them being able. Someone went into the code of what Valve's doing, and then they just saw that. I think it's probably detecting if you have zero overlapping ticks in movement, like holding A&D or WS or whatever, then it's going to just alert. It can tell pretty easily because the thing, like those guys that did all those breakdowns, I don't know if you read that Substack article that guy did and what other
I
people are
saw a little bit.
saying.
I didn't see the Substack. But,
So the people now can basically just parse the demos for
right.
AD keystrokes and things. And if there are zero overlapping ticks, that's just not possible. Like everybody's going to have at least some overlapping ticks, even the best players in the world. Like it's just you're going to mess up at some point, even if it's not necessarily a point where you messed up in a gunfight. You could actually probably have perfect counter strafing for every gunfight that you want if you're Donk, and but you're still going to have overlapping movement ticks just because maybe you're not in a gunfight and you kind of like just press A and D somewhat simultaneously. You're not locked in every single second of the game. So Valve's now able to see it. So I think there's potentially something that'll happen because I think one thing that this was always a bad argument to me, but some people that were trying to debate, it's like, oh, it's already Pandora's box is already open. We can't detect it. So it's like, well, now they can. So
They can
that's
detect
not really
everything
the
if they want to. Realistic, like
exactly.
something like that is just like it's not like they're hiding it in like a high level cheat.
Right.
Like this is a keyboard you plug in. Like as long as Valve knows what it is, I feel like they can detect it.
Yes.
Hopefully, they can't see my browser history, but but that's another. Let's close, delete this. No, no. But yeah, like I don't know. I so if they can detect it, the fact that they can detect it makes me think they're thinking about what to do. Why put that code in the game if you're like just to know? I guess I don't know like why you'd code it in there unless it was for
Right.
something else. Um, so I don't know like what do you think? Like, do you think it should be allowed? Do you think it should be banned? Do you think they should just allow the buy-ins with it? Like,
Hmm. So I have most of my arguments are against it. I'll just say that. The main logic I have behind it is that I don't think that there should be any sort of extra if you're not making an input through a binary like if every key should be sort of allocated its own ability because part of the mechanical ability that everyone trains for in this game is pressing keys in a very finely maneuvered way and finely honed way that activates exactly what you want them to do, not what you think you want to do, not what another key is making you do. And it should be all of your movements are what you want because if it's just if pro like some people are making the argument and I think some of these are going to be some of my arguments are constructed based off of what other people are saying and it's just like disproving their side of it and some people are saying well the pros are and these are all things that I've read. I'm not trying to straw man anything but it's like well this is what the pros wanted to do anyways, and it's not going to affect them. Well, it's like, well, a pro wants to have a perfect spray pattern every single time, but in the heat of a stressful moment, they're not always going to activate that with their hand moving down. So why would I give them a shortcut to activate a perfect spray pattern? Because I don't want everybody to spray like Elige. I like that Elige is one of the best three sprayers in the world, and that's a skill that he's honed all the time. And just because they think it doesn't mean that pros have actually worked towards those skills to achieve it. Because like people are also saying, oh, this isn't going to really affect pros. It's like, no, I've literally seen Snappy shoot his first two bullets while he's still strafing. Like it will affect him. Like in that high pressure moment, or Hooksy for that matter. Like the difference between Hooksy and Nico is that Hooksy is messing up his counter strafes like 1 out of 150 times, and those times can be and that number increases in high pressure moments. But I would imagine with Snap Tap, and I know because I'm using Snap Tap now on everything I do. I'm not messing up. I don't mess up those moments anymore. Like in a high pressure moment, I'm just hitting a perfect counter strafe faster than anybody can. And that's another thing is that this the reason I felt like null binds were banned before because the admins before were not trying to allow people to basically cancel out bad actions with a new action. Like it's once it just becomes a very slippery slope very quickly where if you're allowing people to sort of remove the human error of what it is that they're doing, then the game's skill floor actually raises so much that what made some of the bad players as bad as they were is now taken out of the game. And I don't really want that to happen because another way I'd relate it is almost like, a pro player in Street Fighter, if they want to do like a half circle up to do like an uppercut punch, they have to input that motion every time. I don't want them to just be able to press one button and do it
Yeah.
just because they want to be able to do it. And some
Yeah.
people will say all pro players can do it, but that's not always true. They mess up
Well, a
sometimes.
good example would be like, have you played Dota?
Yeah.
Invoker. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you want someone just to meteor.
Yep.
Like one button. Like, no, the whole thing is you put the orbs in the right order and you hit the key and like you hit it. Like, it takes skill. Some people are quicker on their like some people are faster at it. Some are slower. Like, a really good invoker is nuts. Like
Right.
someone that can do everything like without even really thinking about it. You know what I mean? Like, if you watch a really good invoker versus like a decent invoker, you will see the difference.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, I have not played Dota or watched it in a few years, so this is from like a couple years
It's
ago.
still true, I think. I
Yeah,
think
like
Invoker still does that. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I'm hoping that I don't sound like an idiot because I haven't been just paying too much attention to Dota.
It'll be
But
like tornado, EMP, meteor, like
yeah,
the wave combo, like a 4 spell combo. Even putting down then the ice wall too is like it's like a 5 spell combo to like really
and you're fucking
CC an
playing
area.
piano, dude. Like
Yeah,
while
yeah.
you're doing it, and like
And sure, I
yeah,
want to do that every time, but I
yeah,
can't.
yeah,
You
and
know?
like there are macros that are illegal that people have
Yep.
used, and like to me it's very similar. Whereas I agree with you 100%. Like you want the game to have the highest skill cap that you can, and when you remove elements of skill, it's only like waters down the game
Yeah.
to me. And it's like
Exactly.
I would even make the argument that smoke everyone using the jump spines with the smokes is even a little weird to me. Like
I agree now. No, I
um
agree now.
I
Yeah.
and it's hard because I get it. Like there's certain smokes that like are very hard to hit without consistently without a jump bind. But I'm like, doesn't that make it kind of cool that there's the there like there's certain smokes that if you line it up and you have a jump bind, you will never miss. They will always land in the same spot. But isn't it kind of cool that someone can be better at more consistently throwing a smoke, and you have the option of it just not being there? So like, if
Hmm.
you're going to run a strat and there's a smoke and it's a hard smoke to throw, the strat is banking off the fact that you can hit the smoke. And to me, like I guess you could argue, oh, it's a little bit random, but I'm like, yeah, but so is real life. Like so are sports. There's always
Yeah.
a little bit of randomness in games. And you can also take out the randomness by not doing that strat with that smoke if you think it's too risky. Like there should be some give and take. Like if a smoke is so strong that you're risking it missing and throwing it, then like you have to factor that in. Like if it's 5-5 and it's a super important round, are you going to do it? Are you going to hit it? Are you like, do you have the balls to call it? Whereas like now every pro hits every smoke 99% of the time. Like every once in a while, you'll see someone
Yeah.
botch a smoke, but with all the money analysts, all the training people do now, it's like pretty much hit them every time. But
I
that's just
see
my
maybe like
opinion.
one missed smoke per day if I'm watching 9 maps of Counter Strike. That's
Yeah,
basically what it
and
is.
like
Yeah.
a lot of times it's just because they had to throw it too fast. Like for me, that's
Yeah.
when I would miss them. Is like someone would be like, "Get ready to hit B," and I'm like taking my smoke out, and they're like, "Go!" and I'm like, "No, no, no!" I'm like
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not set up right. So then I kind of throw it quicker than you should have, and
Yeah.
then people are, "Why did you miss it?" And you're like, "Well, like you got to give me like I can't like teleport to my fucking smoke and throw it like."
I'm used to
Uh,
having banana control not being mollied and flash while I throw it,
yeah,
you know?
exactly. So that's just my opinion on that. But I think it goes back to the snap tap thing of like, yeah, like you want players like if you're good at stopping, then that's your advantage. That's your skill that you earned to be better than
Yeah.
someone else. Whereas if you have the keyboard, everyone's on the same playing field, I guess. And I suppose you could make an argument that, well, like, oh, you have a wireless, mouse that costs $300, and I don't. And yeah, I get that, but it's still not the same to me because, like, peripherals are a little bit. It's like having ice skates and stuff, right? Like it's
Well,
just like
yeah.
it's something you just have to buy, and
It,
it's just like there's no way
per,
around that really. You can't uniformly give everyone the same mouse pad and mouse
right.
to the whole
The
world.
peripherals are something where like the thing is like no peripheral before has just input an action that you're not inputting for you
Right.
to make your life easier. The peripheral is it's kind of enhancing your ability in some ways where you're like, no mouse is aiming for you. I
Yeah,
guess that's how I put like, and
no mouse that you use.
yeah, no mouse, no mouse that
Donks mouse.
right. That's the one that I'm still curious about. Yeah, no, yeah, nothing. No mouse is doing a spray pattern for me. No mouse is making my jumps easier. Like it's almost like if there were I guess an interesting one would be like, what about a mouse where if I hold left click, it'll click as fast as humanly possible, so I can just hold left click and spray my dualies down? Because that feels to me a lot like what the route we're going down.
Yeah,
If we
that's
allow
true.
snap tap, then why can't I have I guess rapid trigger is the wrong, like a turbo feature, essentially a turbo feature where
And you could do
I'm
that.
holding left click.
Like
Yeah,
you could, 100.
yeah,
percent you could probably script b hop stuff
yep.
into a
B hop
peripheral.
scripting, absolutely. That's another
Um,
one I was bringing up too in examples. Yeah,
yeah, and I mean, to me, it's getting a little wild. And like your point of like your mouse not aiming for you would be like, I know this wouldn't happen. I don't think any would ever agree to it. But like, if I have a G Pro 69 edition and I can hit a key and it has like a good M4 spray, like
yeah,
it will like help my spray pattern in a certain way, like be more condensed into a smaller pattern because it's like it's got all the algorithms figured out. Some like
yeah.
genius has done it. Like that's not fun. Like
No,
you know, like that makes the game lame to me. So I 100% agree. I'm not for it, but again, I've not used it yet. So Razer was going to send me one at some point, but I have not actually got one yet.
I'll just say, like, from my own experience, my counter strafing on Leadify has only gone up like 1 or 2% roughly from the games before I was using it. So it's not actually showing that stat that much, but just based off of feel. And I feel like at the end of the day, I'm not like, so I feel like you should trust certain, like, some things have to kind of be done by like, I guess there are stats that prove it. The guy that did the whole tick overlap thing was saying that there's zero tick overlap for people that are using the Wooting or the Snap Tap one. So now you can just have perfect counter movements at all times, and you're never gonna have two keys pressed. Because I think some people think, is there some disadvantage for using Snap Tap? And the answer is just unequivocally no. You're never trying to press A and D at the same time in Counter Strike. Like I've tried thinking up ways to make it. You're always, if you're trying to press A, you're not trying to like press D at all. Like I don't know if people can visualize that for themselves, but that's one thing. And the other thing is that it just feels a lot more like CS:GO. And some of my kind of hotter takes for my other shows that I've used is that, I mean, this is the reason that Nico's feeling good again. Nico started using it actually at EWC, or oh no, the Blast Spring or the Blast Fall groups. He started using it, and now he's using it at Cologne. Cologne's his best event of the year. Like, it's his best event of the year. He's using Snap Tap. And I'll say that when I'm using Snap Tap now, it feels a lot more like CSGO, because in CS2, when I was first playing it, it felt a little skatier, felt like there was less friction, like counter strafing. It almost felt, I amounted that to being on 64 tick and sub tick. I was like, oh, I feel like, like when you played, did you feel this before? I guess I'll just ask. Like, when you played 64 tick matchmaking, didn't it feel like when you were strafing out with a deagle, you had to pause for another like
Yeah,
like
yeah, 100%.
like breath? You had to pause for another breath, or like a
Or,
split
or
second
if you
longer.
jump and you land, you
Yes,
can't shoot quite as fast as on 128 tick.
exactly. Exactly. Yes. Yeah. I'm glad you hear that, because I tell people that, especially people in my Twitch chat, and they're like, "Yeah, Grandpa's talking again," or like
No.
whatever. And it's like, you would, if you didn't play a lot of 64 tick and a lot of 128 tick, you wouldn't realize this one difference of like, jiggle one tapping was infinitely better on 128 tick. It was a lot more
Yeah.
responsive. I could jiggle around a corner, instantly shoot when I hit like the very end of that jiggle, and then I could just shoot with my pistol. Like, I felt like I could be a pistol demon in CS:GO, but in CS2, I could just kind of, that bullet wasn't as accurate, and I didn't know what it was. And I realized, okay, once I switched to Snap Tap, I can do it again. Like, I can
Right.
hit these deagle shots
So
that
that's
I
a big
couldn't hit.
advantage then if that becomes more consistent.
And also, just statistically, Nico's deagles, like his percentage of kills with the deagle has gone up like 15% in all of
Yeah.
his games, and they're winning. So you wouldn't think he even should be deagling as much. So it's like, why is he even getting more kills with the deagle? It's like, I think because it feels better, because the snap tap feels better with deagling now. So it feels better with pistols too.
No, for sure. I mean, I mean, yeah, no, for sure. I mean, so that to me kind of solidifies that it is an advantage, like for sure. Like, so if you want to be like Nico, buy SnapTap
Yeah,
keys,
yeah.
and you'll be just as good as him. Yeah, it's like an advertisement, honestly. Because, but like at the end of the day, like if you were someone trying to go pro and that's legal, I would invest in it, like 100%.
Yeah, I'm playing
Like
intermediate and I'm just using it every game. Like I I don't even
yeah,
yeah. So,
no, for sure. So I don't know. I think there needs to be more of a discussion with all the teams and everything to kind of determine like, is this something that the community wants? But I don't know who can really do it other than if Valve comes in, because I feel like TOs are just gonna, like, they don't really care. Like
and everything just boils down to, is it allowed at the major? That's why it comes down to Valve. And Valve's the one that comes out with the entire rule book for the major. And so if they don't have a stance on SnapTap, no TO is. But that's why this new information that came out like a couple hours ago about they can detect SnapTap or just the lack of overlapping ticks is now, I think they might make a stance on it. So
I hope so, because I mean, at the end of the day, I like when things are clarified, even if they're not what I agree with. Like, at least Valve coming out and being like, SnapTap is allowed. Then at least you know, okay, I'm gonna go buy a keyboard, or I'm gonna do this because now I know it's allowed. Because like right now, if I was someone that doesn't have a ton of money, I wouldn't know if I want to buy the keyboard.
right.
You know what I mean? Like if $200 is a lot to me, which it is for a lot of people, especially young kids, like, you want to be best, you want to have an advantage, but at the same time, like, you don't want to buy a keyboard and then it becomes obsolete in like a month because Valve banned it.
Yeah.
So I definitely hope that ruling comes out sooner than later, for sure. Because at the end of the day, I just want to watch Counter Strike with the highest ceiling, and
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like CS has always kind of like lowered it every time the game, there's always
Yeah.
like a little bit lower, and but I mean,
Yeah, every new version just feels like they're making it's because that's the worst thing about like I'm not trying to have like a I'm not a fucking I'm not a commie, but I'm just gonna say that's the worst thing I guess about like capitalism is that is just like at the end of the day,
yeah,
like Valve's trying to make a game that has mass appeal, and the way to do that is to make the game as accessible as possible, and it's why Valorant's such a hit because it's like it counter strafes for you. Like who cares, you know? Like they
yeah,
just took out that whole mechanic. They're just like if you let go of the key, you stop, you're accurate, and more people play that game.
100%, and I 100% I agree, and I think like, um, even with games like Valorant, it's like they're easier, but they're also like more fun to play matchmaking in, and I think that's something
Yeah.
that it plays a big part to it. And then you look at Counter Strike, and they don't really put in the same effort to make matchmaking as fun, especially with cheaters, and stuff like that. And then on top of it, they kind of copied the MR12. I know it was originally like a CS thing, but
Yeah, technically,
but
but
like you're saying, like kind of like Valve always has to have a fine line between like general audience and pros, right? Like your money makers are not coming from pros. We don't make them any money, like
right.
directly. Indirectly, we make the money by making the game popular and having people watch it and want skins. So
Yeah.
the pro scene is very important to them, whether they realize it or not. Just in keeping the game alive, right? Because like if
Hmm.
there's no high end community, then it has less people having like something to strive for. And even if you don't care about being pro, like you want to play a game that's popular, that has a good scene, right? Like
Right.
it's like, do you want to go play like crochet or basketball?
Yeah, exactly.
Like I don't know. Usually people pick the game that's like popular, right? But like what my main point with all that stuff I said for no reason was MR12, now that it's in CS2, I kind of agree with you. Like, it's better for the casual player. It's better.
Yeah.
It's better for pugging. Like for people that don't have a lot of time. You come home from work, you want to bang out 2 games before you got to put your kids to bed or something. Like, it's better. It is.
Hmm.
But at a high level, I still think MR15 was better.
Yeah.
um,
It is. It gets. I mean, BO3s are. That's why BO3s are better than BO1s, and you could even. Yeah, but it's just like where do you draw the line of like, okay, this is pretty exhausting at this point, and like, I don't want every match to be a BO. Even though a BO5, I think I'm going to find out who the better team is 95% of the time. The incremental decrease in knowing that with pure certainty with a BO3 is like I still am going to know the better team 88% of the time or whatever
right,
you
right, yeah.
amount it to be. That's where it's like, but did we actually need the extra 2.5 hours? Because then people are just going to get bored, and no one wants that.
Yeah, and I definitely agree. It's just like it feels like Valve, and it seems like all game devs are kind of like this. Is like nobody ever wants to have slightly different rules for the pros to the casuals, and I never really understood that. Is like, why is it bad that matchmaking is MR12 and when you go pro it's MR15? Like
Right.
why? Like, sure, I understand like it's a little bit of a learning curve when you switch, but I mean like it's not that hard.
No, it's not.
It changes the economy, the way you treat your economy slightly. Um, but if all the TOs and everything were in agreement, then I guess like we're probably shit out of luck. But I just more meant like I never understood why it was so bad. Like pros all played 128 tick, casuals played 64 tick. It wasn't that big of a deal. Like
No,
like
no, it's
like like,
fine. We
like
live with it.
like people wanted it to 64 tick to be 120 tick. That was the main fight.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
like the casuals weren't like, man, I can't believe I'm playing on 64 tick while the pros are like I don't know if I ever saw that argument like one time.
No, no.
So I just felt like it feels like they doubled down on some of these things that I feel like you could just cater to both. But
Also, if you like, I think Valve focused on a couple different things than it's almost like a bunch of red herrings in my opinion of what they needed to do to strengthen the casual community. And to me, the answer, I guess, always was just make a better anti-cheat, or
100%. Yeah.
and that would have just blew this game up. Because still, the thing I hear most from even my casual friends, like I have friends that are fairly I have like, industry people, I have fairly like, serious enthusiast friends, and then I have really casual friends, and my really casual friends are like, I just, I don't like running into cheaters, so I just sometimes play Valorant. Like I'll get one cheater and I'll stop playing CS for a week, and so I'm not gonna. And it's like, yeah, that's what's hurting the audience. It's not, and let's do the like, oh, MR15 versus
Yeah.
MR12. Oh, like, oh, 64 tick, sub tick. Like it's like you guys are just making a mountain out of a molehill on all these other issues that are stopping, or like maybe affecting lightly like 1%, 2% the amount of players. But it's like if you just had a better anti cheat, you'd get like 50% more audience immediately. Everybody like, holy shit, they made a real anti-cheat. Time to move back because I'm done with Valorant, because the only reason I played that is because I knew I wasn't facing cheaters.
100%. And like, coming from someone that I haven't played Valorant in a while, but when the game was first out, maybe like 2 years ago, I got Radiant twice just for like I had an offer from a different team, and I hadn't played the game, so they're like, hey, go play
Yeah.
it, see if you like it. So I was just grinding just to see because I wasn't sure. Maybe I want to switch because everyone was switching at the time, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so I just solo queued. Like I didn't play with anyone. I just solo queued just to get a feel for the game because when you solo queue, you can do whatever you want. Like you don't have to
Yeah.
you don't have to worry about pissing someone off or whatever. So I would I'd play and like I realized that like dude, it's actually more fun to pug this game than it is CS. And granted, it is a different
Yep.
game and it's new, but the elo system was more enticing and the rank up felt better than it did
Yep.
in CS. And then on top of that, like I don't feel like I got cheated ever. Like
Nope.
I feel like every once in a while you might be like I thought maybe some people cheated on my own team. but like because
Yeah.
like every once in a while I get this Reyna that's like 13 years old and he's just like dominating. I'm like, what is going on? But anyways, like I just like I never felt like I got cheated. Whereas I feel like if I go played Counter Strike at a certain point, dude, like you run into someone blatantly cheating and
Yeah.
they're not even trying to hide it. And then you also have the fact that since all these people are blatantly cheating, how many guys are hiding it decently?
Yeah.
Which is also frustrating because it. And at the same time, like I don't agree with this at all. Like I don't agree with this as a like something that people should do. But a lot of people will turn into cheaters because they get frustrated because they turn
Oh
into
yeah.
cheaters because they're like, man, everyone fucking cheats, so I'm gonna cheat, and then they get their own cheats, and like it creates this vicious cycle of like just making people into shittier people. Kind of like if you
Yep.
send someone to prison for like stealing a loaf of bread to feed his family. It's like, well, he probably wasn't a danger to anyone, like, or
Right.
and now he's gonna go into prison, and they're gonna, you know, make him
And
even a
now he
worse
can't get as
person.
many jobs
Yeah,
as like, yeah, now it's
and
on his permanent record and he can't apply for the same things.
and
Yeah.
then he's got to do shit in prison to like get by and shit, and we get in debt with someone in there. Anyways, like it just
Yeah.
makes it worse. And in CS, I feel like it's similar, where like you breed a lot of like you make people cynical,
Yep.
because they just get mad. They just like, and like you said, they'll just go play a different game Because if their
Hmm.
goal isn't to be a good Counter Strike player, they have nothing holding them to Counter Strike. There's a lot of
Right.
other fun games. Counter Strike's not like the only fun game that exists. They can go play PUBG, Valorant. WoW has like classic retail. Like there's a ton of
Hmm.
stuff. Like if I was a casual player, I wouldn't play matchmaking every day.
No.
0% chance unless it was like I started playing Counter Strike and I got like the bug. You know when you play a game and like you're like this is the best game ever. Like okay, if it wasn't that scenario though, I'm gonna play a different game, 100%. Like
Right. Riot has a better approach to casual play. They definitely as opposed to Valve's marketing team or like not their marketing team, I guess their economics department, where Valve's economics department just said, guys, your best thing is skins, and your other best thing is that you're a marketplace for games. So like just focus on that stuff, and the games are all secondary at this point, and those are all passion projects. That's how it feels like for Valve right now. But for Riot, their group, surprisingly, I mean, they're like they have the feeling of gambling because of like the night market in Valorant, but then you can kind of just buy the stuff you want through them, but they just don't enable this secondary marketplace for skins. It's basically like you're always buying from us. We don't want any kind of weird stuff going on behind the scenes, and it's more straightforward, and they're just better at knowing what keeps people's attention and what the key things you need to focus on are if you're going to have a game that's successful to people that only want to invest 5 hours a week as a hobby.
exactly. Because like not everyone wants to grind 10 hours a day, you know.
No,
And yeah, I mean like saying this Valorant's not perfect. You know, they still don't have a
no.
demo player still.
Oh,
Like like
CS is better at the top level for me, but at the yeah,
yeah,
yeah, no,
like they're not. We're just comparing certain aspects of the game. Like we're not saying Valorant's a better game or they're a better company. And the AC is very intrusive from Valorant. And I think that's
yep.
the main reason that Valve can't, you know, catch as many cheaters because they don't have like a kernel level anti cheat. But
Hmm.
um, I do think like I think like a good way to do it would be like maybe at a certain rank you just force people to like look at this point you have to get the kernel like maybe at the lower ranks like silvers and shit it's like I know there might be some cheaters down there but like I don't know I don't have the best solution for it it's definitely
Val-
complicated but
Valve are like I mean, one thing that you could do to instill fear is like once you hit 20,000 elo, you have to submit your government ID or something. Like
social
if you're
credit score by
yeah,
Maui
yeah, which is there's like different ways to hold people accountable. I'm not saying any of these are perfect either. If you don't want the kernel anti-cheat, they're apparent like the rumor is I don't even know if I believe this anymore, honestly, but the rumor is that they're doing that AI anti-cheat, which is why there were a lot of false positives. If you just turned your sensitivity to like 1 million and just started spinning like crazy, the game would just flag you and just ban you. And I think that actually was their attempt at an AI anti-cheat, but then that brief week of false positives of people just being like, okay, I did it too, and now I'm VAC banned or game ban. It's not VAC. It's not the same as a VAC ban because it didn't technically detect it. It just detected disturbing behavior that you
yeah
were committing in the game or seemingly cheating behavior. And but I also think like I mean, yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's a little too extreme for some people, but if you had to just take a picture of your ID, I mean, how many people I guess people could just keep photoshopping them, but are you really going to go through the effort of just photoshopping all these ideas if you keep getting back banned over and over and over again or Overwatch banned? I just doubt it. Yeah.
it's gonna filter out some people the ultra trolls will still do it but like
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, there
but
would still be some.
But you're
Yeah.
always gonna have some. There's always gonna be someone that bypasses something, right? Like
Oh, of course,
there's
even with
definitely
an
like
intrusive anti-cheat.
yeah,
Yeah.
like you're gonna hardware cheats, install it like when your computer's off into the hardware. Like people are next level. I've even seen people using capture cards to use AI aimbots. Like it's like
Yeah.
there's some wild shit. I don't understand it all, but like it's where there's a will, there's a way, and these people have a lot. There's a big market for cheats too, right? So like as long as there's going to be a market for people paying hundreds of dollars a month for these like, inclusive cheats that are undetectable, they're going to keep making them. But those aren't the people that I really think are the worry for matchmaking. You know, like most cheaters in matchmaking aren't using like they're not spending $300 a month for like updated cheats to cheat in silver lobbies. You know,
Right.
like those are generally the people trying to cheat at like a higher level in Face It on ESCA when they existed, right? Like those are usually what the people are using the good cheats for. Um, but yeah, I definitely just think like the AC being better, like you said with AI, is like I've always wondered like can you not detect when your crosshair is just like teleporting, like
Yeah, seriously.
when the mouse didn't actually move it and like it just went from like pixel 21 to 300 or something like maybe I'm not like
If
savvy
it,
to that.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how an AI anti-cheat isn't detecting when someone gets 5 scout headshots in the span through walls like 5 times in a like 5 rounds in a row every single time. It doesn't flag it like, surely this is something
Dude,
fishy going on here.
people have disagreed with me, but I've said like, dude, if you're like if you're not like let's say we just use the normal CS ranks like global elite if you're a global elite in a silver game, I don't know how you'd get in there, but like let's say theoretically you did, okay, they're gonna farm, right?
Yeah.
But if you're a bunch of double eagles, right, in a game, let's say everyone's like a double eagle, and a guy's 30-0 in 5 rounds,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
ban him. Like it's not possible. Like there's certain things that are just like not humanly possible. Like
Right.
and someone would be like,
Right.
well, technically, well, then they can appeal it, but it's going to be such a small percentage of people that actually did it legitimately that it's going to
Right.
be like not a big deal at all. Like I could do all the cases for it. That's how little that's
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
little it's going to actually impact because like how many people legitimately got 6 aces in a row?
Right. We
You
don't
know,
we
like
we don't need AI. We just need if you're getting if you're winning rounds within 10 seconds every single time,
yeah, like
5 rounds consecutively, just you're banned. You're banned and you can take it up.
and
It's
like
fine.
obviously this is more for people that are blatantly cheating or
Yeah,
like cheating out
exactly.
harder, but like dude,
Yeah, that's yeah.
if every time you get a double kill, the both kills happen in the same millisecond, like
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like there's certain things that I'm like you should I figured you'd be like some sort of machine learning should be able to like at least flag
Right, no.
that person like highly like
How
at the
far behind is this AI anti-cheat than we had hoped it would be by now when that stuff can still happen
yeah
to anybody
yeah.
anytime? It's just
Oh,
too
he just
much.
scout. Oh, mid. He's just never missed a person crossing, just the whole game, just like a
Yeah.
scout headshot through a wall. And I get it. Sometimes people have the life game, um,
Yeah.
but there's certain things that are not possible. You
Yeah,
know, like
no. You give Simple people jumping Simple in his prime or Monacy in his prime, like both of them, people are going to jump across mid. They will miss 1 out of 10,
yeah,
like easily, for
yeah,
sure. It's not. There's no question about it.
yeah. And it's like not everything you need definitive proof for either. Like you look at the Rock. People are like, "Oh, he's natural." No, he's not. He's in his 50s. You know what I mean?
No.
0% chance. Like, so there's certain things that like, yeah, maybe you couldn't like sue them or like like do
Right.
something more extreme because there's not like conclusive evidence. But like, yeah, there's some things that are just aren't possible in life, and I've always wondered about that. But so I guess Snap Tap, we both agree. Probably we're not fans of it.
Nah. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm technically using it, but I'm not. As soon as they tell me I'm not using it or that it's banned, I'm willingly taking it out. Like
Uh,
I'm just, I
I
don't
wonder how the
care.
transition back's gonna be once you're used to
I
the
know.
Snapchat.
I'm
Then
gonna
you're gonna
slide a little bit more. I'm gonna miss some first bullets. I'll tell you
you're gonna
that.
be like, oh
Yeah.
my god, I can't jiggle peek like one tap as well.
My jiggles are so good now, and they weren't this good in CS2.
Oh
So
really? Is
yeah,
it even better?
yeah. I'm definitely
Um,
playing better now.
so what else we got coming up? We got the RMR stuff coming up pretty kind of soon.
There's the Cologne playoffs. They're happening.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Tomorrow or in 2 days.
2 days.
Where are these ones? Yeah, so you got Mao's G2, Saw Phase. Saw, what do you think of Saw? They seem like that team that's like almost there. Like they get really close a lot, but then they always fall when they're like when it kind of matters. I feel.
Saw are on a weird streak right now with just their play at the play-in and through Cologne itself. The thing that they're really fortunate about is that it looks kind of impressive that they made it all the way through the play-in, now all the way to the playoffs, but they actually got to play the Mongols twice. and that's a bit like, okay, that's a little maybe matchup dependent. They're good at it. And another thing is that they're very good, generally speaking, at nuke, and they've also won that in I think all of their series, maybe except for one of the games against. No, actually, they played nuke in half of their games. I feel like they're kind of giving to me specialist vibes as opposed to like a really complete team. And if I want to just from a narrative side, because I probably could watch them a little bit closer and learn a little bit more, but they added Barry as their coach. He was the coach of Sprout before, and in the last month, they've just kind of regained a lot of form that they kind of showed promise to before, but then they sort of petered out. And now I think
Yeah.
they're regaining that. And I think that it's kind of like a mini honeymoon where you get a new coach and he brings a lot of stuff to the table. Like I think anybody that's played at a decent level, it's like the first time you're like having these meetings with coaches that are worth anything, they're going to bring a lot to the table. They're going to help you renew your playbook, help you rethink some of the rounds that you probably were failing at. And then it's like, can they sustain it? And that's the difference between coaches like Blade and probably coaches like Barry. You know, I'm all for Barry looking really good for this first month with Saw, but I don't know in 3 months if they're going to still be they're looking like a top 10 team in the world. And I don't know if that's true.
I agree with you. I thought they had promise, and they kind of fizzled out a little bit. It seemed like I was actually watching their games on stream and stuff, and be like, damn, like these guys are actually like their overpass was really solid. Like, bet this is obviously before. Um,
Yeah.
and I would watch them, and then all of a sudden they just started losing everything. Like they
Yeah.
started just getting like it's not getting owned every game, but like their form definitely took a downward spiral. And now obviously they're doing better here, but again, like they kind of beat a new-ish G2 and Mongols.
Yeah.
I think if they beat FaZe, they're legit. Like
Yeah.
I think so. What do you think about their G2 win? Because I watched it and I'm just kind of like, I don't think it means as much as people think. Just because G2 is probably still fine tuning a couple things. It to me, if I lose to Saw as G2, I'm like, damn, we lost. They earned it, but that's not happening again. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think that's kind of like part of the Barry playbook is that actually Saul got a lot of their dirty work done on the T sides of both of those maps that they played against G2. Like they went 8-4 T side nuke against G2 and 8-3 T side Inferno. Their CT sides didn't have to do a lot of heavy lifting there, so I can't like the thing is like you look at a team like Saw and I mean I know some people out there might be like, oh, like Eras Dose and U Jerks are both like they're up and coming talents, and it's like, yeah, they're up and coming talents, they're not talents today. And so the individual player quality that gets more pressured and tested on CT sides didn't have to happen. In fact, they didn't even really have a good CT side on Inferno. They only got 5 rounds on their CT side of Inferno. So it's like the thing that I like about Saw is that they're good at staging. They like take map control, and I feel like they're very quick with their decision making. And this is what I think is like they probably made flow charts for as soon as we get map control in a certain area on nuke especially. I would notice they throw the cross motes on nuke, they pressure lower briefly, and then they just instantly start moving peeling back, and then they do an A split through mini. One guy's lurking outside still, whatever it is, and that catches teams off guard. They just don't expect that the T's are gonna instantly change it up like that, because as soon as they're relaying the comm that it's like, oh, I just saw 3 guys test like contesting for control door, they all are already peeling back and going mini. And it's like, okay, that's how you're playing with people's rotations, because you know what you're going to do. And it's almost like that's why once you start becoming a team like Saw, I think they're programming themselves a little too strongly as opposed to actually working off of real reads. And I think that Muterus is probably just following things to a T with what they've drawn up beforehand. And the early map control is going so well for them that they don't have to really contest with the idea of like, oh, we're in a 4v4. Like, how do we do it? Well, we're in a 3v5. It's like they're kind of getting map control decently cleanly, and some of their riflers are hitting some shots. And so that's what I mean. Like if you're not losing too many people taking space and you just enact the second plan, you know what the second plan is before the reacting CTs do.
No, and it's super good when you have those plans too, because like you're saying, when you make a decision quickly, it doesn't give the CD side a lot of time to think, right? Like they're reacting to what you just were doing, and like you're ready, like almost hitting their site. So if they pulled someone from B on Inferno or something and you went back, like yeah, no, I definitely I like what they're doing, but
Yeah.
I think like if you're G2 when you watch the demo back, you probably are going to see and adapt, and I don't think it'll be as easy. But I think FaZe will be a good test for me, like to watch them and like because FaZe is going to watch their demos, like obviously, right?
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
so if they can beat FaZe while kind of being exposed with having a bunch of nukes played and stuff, like they're legit. Like I think they'll be a good team. So um yeah, so I mean that's Saw versus FaZe. I mean I'm still taking FaZe on that one,
Oh yeah, for
personally.
sure. Oh, definitely.
And then you got G2 Maus, where to me I feel like it's actually one that is not an easy prediction. Like it kind of goes like if G2 shows up in full form, they win. But if Maus show up in full form and G2's a little off, I think Maus can easily like 2-1 them. Like
Yeah. For me, the main thing with Maus is that I feel like if I'm game planning and I'm Cyclone, Shuhei, the Mouse guys, I'm thinking to myself, okay, these guys are in unbelievable individual form. Malbs on these entries, Nico on these entries. It's going to be really hard to contest them one by one because it's kind of like that donk conversation we had earlier. It's like we're going to lose 60% of these fights if it's just one of us. And so we have to really draw up these starters to make sure we're not just starting around 4v5 every time. Like we want to at least be in a 4v4. So I I kind of wonder when Snacks is truly game planned against if Mao's brainchild can overcome the sheer brawn of what G2 are doing, which is like nothing's really disguised with G2. They're not
no,
like going to trick you. They're not going to sell a fake and then go somewhere else. They're not even really mid rounding that much. They're just kind of like just doing a really obvious default and then just splitting based off of the positions that they already have and the entries they inevitably get. And so I think what's scary about this is like it kind of might come down to Torzi because I think the best and cleanest way to usually take care of a crazy Mobs and Nico is put an op on their positions. And so one, are G2 going to flash him? And two, is he going to hit the shots? And I've made kind of the bold pred lately that people kind of sleep on Torzi a little bit. They're like, oh, like if you replace anybody, it's probably Torzi. I'm like, Torzi actually is the one player in arena games that actually still plays well, and the other riflers have been the ones that have actually crumbled for Mouse. Like Yimpat's been pretty bad in arenas actually. Brolin's been kind of bad in arenas. Exertion isn't as good in arenas, but Torzi actually was the one guy during that whole like that major rushing the stage fiasco where he still played well actually, and actually at other tournaments he still played
forgot
well.
about that.
Yeah,
Should
yeah.
have rushed the tournament. Oh man. Okay, they made it pretty far too. No, I agree. I think towards these stats are actually pretty good.
Yeah.
Like overall, but yeah, I mean like if you're gonna shut down basic defaults, ops are the way to do it, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
it's like almost willing. It's almost like on certain maps, it might not be a bad idea to just pick up two ops. Even like
Yep.
I don't even know if they have
That's a good idea.
um a secondary opper. I actually
That's
don't
true.
know
I don't
if
know
they
who it
even
is.
have one that picks it up. I mean, like I'm sure like some of them have good enough aim to do it, but they're like op isn't only aim. Like
No.
like you
Right.
can pick up on ramp on nuke and like you're up and down a corridor. It's not that hard, but
Yeah.
for the most part, I feel like opping is more about like positioning and knowing where to actually be than like like if you know an opper somewhere, it's not that hard to push him back. Uh, and like if you're not Shiro, it's very difficult to be a passive opper versus good players. Like there's some people I think opping's really easy, and I'm like, yeah, wait till you try at a high level where like there's
I
always a
know.
smoke, there's always a flash, like, and if you are off even 1 millisecond, your head gets blown off by a 3 ping AK. Like
Yeah.
it's not quite the same as your matchmaking experience where there's no smokes and you just get to just take as many shots as you want.
Yeah.
Like you miss, you
Yeah.
die at a high level.
I just checked for op KPR for the entire year for Maus. Torzi has a regular amount of op kills per round. The second, no one on Maus has above 0.00 op. No one else is doing it. Yeah, because
They don't even kill people with his saved op. Like
no, they don't. No one's doing it. Like no one has even 0.01 op kills
yeah.
per round. Period. Other than Torzi, that's even like Frozen and Kerrigan and JL and Shush have these random .01s here and there that are on the blip. Like you're just like, wait, when did you even have it? Donk has one, by the way. Donk has .01 op kills per round for the year, and like nobody on Mouse has any except for Torzi.
That's funny. That's actually kind of wild. I mean, like when you look at the roster, they really don't even have that guy that I even know who would do it. Like sometimes you're like, okay, Nico can pick up an op if he wants. Like he's not an opper, but he'll pick
Right.
one up. Like,
Yeah.
even like Bit can pick up an op on Navi and stuff. So it's like, yeah, you definitely have like some of these players that I kind of feel like they're like NAF can pick up an op.
Mm-hmm.
But like on Mouse, I'm just like I don't even know if I ever seen them op, and I guess they don't.
I'm checking right now. I actually think it's legitimately like 0 kills for some of them. It's crazy. Okay. Exertion has 7 this year. Okay.
And they're probably just saved ops as
Yes.
well.
Yeah.
If you have 7, you probably didn't even buy one.
No.
Yeah,
No.
that's funny. Um, but I was gonna ask you because I forgot earlier. Complexity. All right.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So, Elige, their star, playing out of his mind. In my eyes, like I think he's
Yeah.
every once in a while he'll drop the ball, but I mean like there's only some. I feel like when I see Elige doing poorly, a lot of times I feel like he's over peaking a little bit,
Mm.
but also in the fact that he feels like he needs to do it all. Like that's how it looks. It doesn't feel to me like he's being greedy. It just feels like he's trying to put people on his back.
Yeah.
And there's a difference for anyone listening. Like there's a difference of being greedy and being like, if I don't do it all, we're gonna lose. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's a different mindset. It's not like you're trying to just farm kills. You're trying to, legitimately do like a simple esque kind of performance where you take over the game. But when you
Yeah.
do poorly, then obviously you do pretty bad. Like when
Yeah.
when you're playing like that. Um, Halzerk obviously being like their opper. I feel like he's stepped up lately. Like in the last couple of months, I do think he's been playing better. I don't think he's like an all-star opper or anything. Floppy, he's doing pretty poor. I think he stepped up a tiny bit, but not a ton.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then you got JT, who I think is fine. I think he's a good player, good caller. I
Yeah.
mean, I think he's pretty safe on that. I don't think they should remove him. Like Elijah and JT are 100% just safe
Yeah.
um, players to me. Whereas I feel like you could make an argument for some of the other ones. And then obviously you have Grimm, who to me is the biggest unknown on that team in the sense that like I think he should be better than he's
Yeah.
been playing. And I think he has it in him to be better. But it seems like I don't know why. I've watched a lot of complexity games, but it just feels like they never peak at the same time. It's like Elige
Oh
is
my God.
owning.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah. No.
like there's never a floppy Grim Elige trio where they're all just like on fire. Like
Nope.
like Elige drops off, floppy might step up, Grim might do okay, they still lose. You know what I mean? Like it's
Mm-hmm.
just there's just not enough consistency at a high level for them when they're playing like the tier ones to me.
Yeah. No. I don't like to like single people out on this team more than I don't think it's really an industry secret that I kind of like know the guys on complexity a little bit more. So I don't go at them probably as hard as I do other teams. But so I kind of want to view it more from like the team side of things of what's not going well. And like you said, I couldn't see myself removing JT. I think JT is actually a top 10 in game leader right now. I think there's a case that JT could have been there for snacks. In all honesty, I think they would probably G2 probably wouldn't do it because Nico always wants somebody that's won a major next to him. Obviously, like it seems like he just wants people that are really established at majors, which JT isn't. But in terms of pure calling, I think JT's great, and I think the game plans that TC has come up with him is great. When I watch some of the collapses that they had at Cologne, they start really well in these games. It feels like they're running the first gun round, great ideas. Second gun round, even still great ideas. But then they start once there's any adaptation in the middle of a half, it feels like And it could be two things of why they kind of fall off at the end of halves or in games, is that the other team starts to, like, they get nervous and they start to be almost afraid of like winning for whatever reason that is. Or two, the other team adapts to what they're doing. And three, I also just think just kind of weirdly poor fundamentals in key situations. Like, it almost is like when they, like, I watched this one round and I posted it to Twitter where I reacted to, like, I was watching their post plant at the Blast Fall groups, and they were in a 4v3 advantage post plant on the A side of Anubis, just dug in, bombs down. All of Navi is retaking from, I think, camera. I think all three of them are swinging from, maybe no, one guy's coming in from my team calls it Shrek, but like, CT. They're coming from CT, and two guys are coming from camera. No one's flanking at all, and for whatever reason, Floppy is in, like, there's two guys on the site, JT and Halzerk. Elige is playing like that power position at the pillar, like near Fountain and or whatever you call that, plat. And Floppy's all the way back at A main. And Halzerk, for whatever reason, just jumps over like Broken Wall and peeks into the guy that's in CT. And I'm like, what? You have a crossfire you can set up. Then JT swings to peek stairs into camera, and I'm like, but Elige is behind you at the pillar. Like, no one can trade any of these deaths. And then Elige actually gets one back. But then it's a 2-on-2, and instead of playing with Floppy while the bomb is still planted, he decides to like just go for a single swing by himself because he thinks he can catch a timing, and then he dies, and then Floppy's left in a 1v2, and instead of actually even playing for the tap, he just swings himself. And I'm like, this team's composure in big moments is just the most frustrating thing possible. Like, it makes me want to scream more than any other team. And despite the fact that they've been a roster together for like a year now, they still don't have that like Astralis level of cohesion that made Astralis so unbeatable when they were in the power and advantage positions.
No, I agree. I see a lot of the similar things where it just looks like what match was I watching yesterday or the day before? It was like Complexity
They played
versus.
Liquid.
Was it? Did they play them on Nuke? No, I was watching a Nuke game. It was
They
versus Mouse
played,
Sports. It was versus Mouse Sports.
yeah, they played
Sorry,
Miles, yeah.
I just had to check because my brain. I've been
Mhm.
just for anyone wondering. I got a new puppy, and I have not been sleeping the greatest because she
Yeah.
is being crate trained, and then I medicate myself with a little bit of weed, and that makes me groggy. Plus the lack. Anyways, it's been
Yeah.
my brain hasn't been functioning at 100%. Not that it ever did, but
Right. Well, you need nootropics for that.
yeah, I need some more lion's mane.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
But I was watching that game, and dude, they had a ton of very advantageous rounds, like 4v3s, 3v3s, and like granted, some of the 4v3s are like entries, and then like one guy kind of gets flanked like as it's happening. So I don't really count those as like true 4v3s because like
Right.
you know what I mean. It's not like you were set up and then you did something stupid and you died. It's just kind of like you died in transition of the round.
Yeah.
But dude, it was just like Mouse had so many lower retakes, and like
Yeah, that's what I mean.
retaking lower is not easy. It is very difficult, especially when you're set up properly. And like, hats off to Mouse Sports, like amazing. Like the retakes they won were incredibly difficult, and they did flawless execution on doing it. So it's like it's a little bit on Complexity's fault, but obviously like Mouse Sports are super skilled players, and like some teams are better than others at retakes, right? Like so some teams are very comfortable retaking. Some people almost just want to save because
Yeah.
they're not as good at it. But like to me, I'm just like, dude, these are wins that they're just that they're throwing away. Like a lot. Like if you were to like tell me that I had these amount of rounds, I'd be happy. Be like, oh,
Hmm.
would you want a 3v3 versus Mouse Sports and lower with the bomb down? I'm like, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
of course I do.
Yeah.
And then they're like, well, you had four of them and you lost them all. And I'd be like, okay,
Right.
So like. I agree with you 100% on like these weird round breakdowns. It almost seems like they kind of miss when it becomes important on some of the players. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I don't know if it's like a chemistry issue like you're saying, like if it's a player experience issue. Like all of them are pretty experienced, like they've been to a bunch of lands, and like
Right.
kind of like you, I'm friends with all those guys. If they hear me talking, I'm not trying to ruin anyone's career or anything. It's just like you got to talk about these things like kind of unbiased,
Yeah.
if possible. And like when I say I feel like Grim should be better, that's because I believe he's better than he is, like
Yeah.
than he's showing. It's not like I'm saying Grim is bad. I'm like, why are you not living up to your true potential? Is kind of the way that I'm looking at it. Same with Floppy. Like Floppy almost got picked up by Liquid.
Mm-hmm.
He was
Mm-hmm.
in a really good spot, and again, he's just like, maybe it's a role issue. Like sometimes you get put in positions as lurk and stuff that maybe you don't love playing, and that's happened to me in my career. And it can really change you as a player. You're used to being aggressive, you're used to kind of doing what you want, and then all of a sudden now you're passive. You can't make your own plays, and you suck. like,
Yeah.
it happens, but yeah, for me, complexity, like something's got to change, whether that's like mindset or a player or something. Like sometimes a player needs to be changed not because the player is bad, but just to bring in new blood, new life into a
Yeah.
roster. But I honestly don't know.
I kind of feel that too because it's like you're if you don't really light a fire under their asses, like people just start to feel a little bit complacent and almost
Yeah,
that they're just stuck in a sort of stasis of where they are. And like Elige is going to continue to keep doing really well. And, like, what is that netting you as complexity? It's netting you roughly the 12th, like eighth to 12th best team in the world. Good being obviously when you're the eighth best, bad on like right now they feel a little bad and they're like the 12th best team in the world, which is like it depends on your objectives as an organization, I suppose. But
like as
no, I
Downs, we'd be
yeah.
thrilled to always be making it to all these events and
Oh
and,
yeah.
and making majors because our goal is to be tier one to break into the tier two, break into the tier one, right? Versus complexity where they're expecting to be like contenders for titles, like
Yeah.
the way the organization is set up with Jason Lake and stuff. Like
Yeah.
I know Jason Lake's not happy with him just being top 10. Like like
No.
like he'd be I don't I mean he can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think he'd be disappointed in a year where they placed top 10 but they won maybe two or three events in the year.
Right.
I think that would offset, like, not every team is going to be a very consistent world beater. Like I think some orgs and some people have these delusions where it's like kind of like the Cloud9 that won the major. They
Right.
were never going to win every event in the year, but they
Right.
won the major and they could have won one or two others. And I think that's exactly what you should be aiming for as a team, because it's kind of unrealistic to expect you to go on like an Astralis run and just win four majors and like
Right.
like so for me, I'm like, if complexity could just win an event here or there or make a couple more deep runs, I think they'd be happy. But like, I just look at the roster and I'm like, Halzerk has been doing better, but I mean, he's not like taking over games with his op either. um so it's hard for me because I like everyone on the team, but I feel like other than Elige, the performances have been kind of iffy.
Yeah.
And JT's been calling well, but
If they're not willing to really if they're not, I guess if they're not willing to change any of the players, I almost feel like you could just swap around. I remember they had a little bit of like a surge, actually, like maybe 2 years ago in 2022. They just flipped some of Grimm's and Floppy's spots. The most notable being, I think it was Grimm was Pit and Floppy was B, and then they just swapped and Grimm became the B player, and he was like a more active rifler. He kind of like took more fights away from the bomb site, but where Floppy would usually kind of like let them in a little bit too much, and then he would just get exec on and he would die. And that was like a nice change. And I kind of feel like you can sort of do that because I don't think anybody's completely hard stuck in their positions with the exception of maybe Halzerk and Elige. And so just kind of toying with the trio of JT, Floppy, and Grimm, because I do think that they all have a lot of skill. But if you just kind of maybe bring a different philosophy to the positions that they play in, which is like more imparted by their own personal abilities and their what they want to do in the round. That might be the shift they need, just to like it's like kind of a fake honeymoon. It's like what VP kept doing. They kept swapping around roles, and like for whatever reason they get a little bit of a resurgence. And yeah, VP's ceiling was a lot higher. Like they could get to they could win tournaments when they did it. When they swap roles and then like two tournaments later, suddenly they win a tournament out of nowhere. And they're like,
yeah.
well, I guess that's it. But then they'd fall off again. And I think it's kind of this is something worth attempting, but I don't know if they've changed anything for a while. I think Floppy's a little bit more aggressive now, for example, and that's maybe why he's been performing just a hair better than he was earlier in the season. But do more. Just do more. Even I don't even know. Like maybe just switch things a little bit, even more drastically.
Yeah, I mean, like if I look at it from an outsider, like I cut myself from Nouns, I'm just a random person watching. I would say like even something potentially like you remove Floppy and you get George,
Oh, okay, yeah.
and then you have B George be the anchors at like B Inferno. He does the lurk stuff because uh, he's very good at those roles. He doesn't die very easy. He's good at jiggle peeking. He's more
Yeah.
naturally good at those roles. And then maybe Floppy could go to a team like NRG for maybe like Hex or something, and maybe take over more of that star role because I feel like Floppy is very talented, but he might be nerfed. So I mean, those are just like random things. I'm not saying they should happen or shouldn't happen, but sometimes I do think you got to shake things up a little bit,
Yeah.
like after a team's been given a certain amount of time. Because like if you think about it, like why would it, after a year of being together and kind of like having a certain amount of results, why are you magically gonna just
Right.
turn into be like a top five consistent team?
E-
Like
Exactly.
it's maybe a team like Mouse Sports where I feel like maybe the experience and the nerves might get, maybe that's like a different factor because you know the potential's there.
Right.
They're just like kind of like it's honestly their own fault that they kind of falter versus like Astralis when they used to lose to Nip, like back in the day. Like Astralis was better than Nip, but they
Hmm.
just had like a mental block of playing Forest and Get Right and stuff. So
Yeah.
there's always different scenarios, but yeah, and I hate to be the guy that'll be like they should make roster changes, cut because like I know how annoying that is when you're a player being like this guy
Yeah.
shut the fuck up. Like I
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but at the end of the day, like I do think like all the players in complexity are good and they can be on teams,
Yep.
but maybe there just needs to be a little change. Like I always thought if NA really wanted to be contenders, it should have been Naf, Twist, Elige again,
Oh yeah.
with an
Yeah.
op, and then maybe like JT or something in there. Like I really think they could have done it, but I get it. Buyouts, orgs are not going to want to. No one's going to want to lose. Complexity's not going to want to lose Elige, and Liquid's not going to want to lose Twist and Naf. Like it's just,
No.
it is what it
No.
is. So it's going
Right.
to be so difficult to have it happen.
I can't. Yeah. I can't really. It's just one of those things. Like, Mobs was just sitting there on M80 for so long, and
Yeah,
that's the thing with complexity. It's like I think the problem is if you've built too strong of a relationship with your players on complexity, which if you're there for a year, that's bound to have happened
yeah,
inadvertently even, then you're gonna give them a lot of passes and everything. But like I don't even necessarily think that I'm not saying one for one that George is better than Floppy today, or that Swisher's better than Grim today, or anything like that. Like I'm not saying any of these players are better than them today, but just that fresh injection of a new perspective and a new style can be the key to unlocking even the people around him. You don't have to make a drastic move, like a drastic. You don't have to do like drastically change two people. It's like we need to like G2 kind of does that for whatever reason, but with a team that's got as much synergy as complexity, I feel like somebody that's got a strong enough personality and can kind of do their own thing is probably a welcome addition at this point. Like you'll just get some little
yeah.
tweak to how you play rounds, and that could do something
I
for
think
you.
right now Lige has a big voice on the team.
Yeah,
I know when we were at the RMR online qualifiers, the complexity facility, whenever we would be out after a game and they were there, he was always calling people out on mistakes, and like it's good to have someone like that that's
yeah,
straight up like he's not doing it in a mean way. He's just being like, you shouldn't have peeked there, and they're like, they make an excuse, and he's like, you shouldn't. Like players are
right.
really good at being like, well, he had a
Yeah,
flash, and then I
I
heard him
know.
knife the wall, so I thought when I
Yeah,
heard the knife that I could peek, but then there was an op holding me, and so
yeah,
it's not my fault. And it's like, I get it. You can like if you're a good player, you can kind of like weasel your way out of any death. Like
yeah,
as long as it's not really stupid, like you can kind of like you can kind of make a situation where you can make someone understand it. But like at the end of the day, sometimes you just have to be like, yeah, I shouldn't have peeked.
right.
you know, I mean, we've all done it where it's like you think you made the right decision, but at the end of the day, like your life was more important than any kill you were
Exactly,
gonna get.
exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, we've been on for a while, so we should probably get any
Word.
last questions or anything, any last topics. Um,
Mm. I'm curious, like, because you're probably a little bit more in tune with the. I think this is something people are always interested in. Always ask me is kind of like you're seeing more of the tier two North American stuff. What do you think for? The question I got the most probably recently on my own stream was like, what about Lake? Like Lake on M80 now that he's brought up, like, what's your beat on him?
Right. So I mean, we actually played versus Lake when he was on whatever that team was before.
I think it was
Forget.
Carpe Diem or
It wasn't.
something.
Yeah. Okay. I
Yeah,
always
might have been.
forget
Might have been.
the team names are changing in the tier two
Yeah,
24/7,
exactly.
and
I'm
they're
not
all
even
swapping.
100%
So
sure
I'm
about that.
like, I don't
Yeah.
remember. But on Nouns, we'd scrim Lake's team quite often actually because there's not a ton of people to play, and dude's definitely skilled. He definitely has done some things where like there was a round where it was like a 1v3 on Mirage, and we were CT, and he was top mid on Mirage. You know where you boost the op like right to peak con, the top of
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Mirage. He was like around that area, and then I think Carson was like swing. So all three of them swung, and it was just like one tap, one tap, one tap, and they all three died. And like technically they don't have to swing there, but it's a scrim, and like I get it. Like they're at least they're trying to do it together because that's
It's
like
a play together. Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
when you peak someone with three people versus one, and he just one taps you all. Like I'm gonna be like Counter Strike's Counter Strike. People have rounds, and you can't always get mad. But like, he's definitely talented. I think when he gets more experience, he'll definitely be good. He was someone we actually looked into potentially getting at one point. Whether that was going to be for our academy team that we're still considering. It's not 100% if we're going to do it or not. Just finances and like how much you want to invest. Could you get a good team? Anyways, he was definitely someone we thought about. So I definitely think he's not a one-for-one replacement for Mulbs because Mulbs is so like you're looking at like a top 10 player honestly in my eyes right now in Mulbs. Um, I definitely like it's big shoes to fill, but I definitely think of all the young talents, he's the one. Maybe GBA like is up there too.
Yeah.
Um, who also has honestly, he was the main reason we didn't win to go to the ESCA season when we were in playoffs. Like in the
Oh,
finals, like if
yeah.
he didn't have that game on Nuke versus us, like we would have won. Like a hundred
On
percent.
wild card, right?
Yeah, like
Yeah, yeah,
hundred
yeah.
percent. If he didn't pop off, we won that game because it was very close, and he won them a ton of rounds of clutches and everything. So those two
Hmm.
guys are definitely like on the top of my list for like the up and comings. DA is decent as an opper.
Hmm.
I think he needs a little bit more time as well and to refine his play a bit, but definitely good. But like the tier two is just weird. I think like the biggest issue is like not necessarily their skill, it's just their attitudes a lot of time, the work
Hmm.
ethic. I'm not gonna say anything too crazy because Cynic David's passed away, but there was a lot of me as a coach wasn't even CS related. It was about like mentality and like acting like a professional. Like sometimes like
Yeah.
for example, my teammate maybe David comes to me and he would be like, "We don't want to play with X player anymore," and I'm like, "Okay, cool. I'll try to talk to them and usually I try to have a reasonable discussion of like, is this actually what good for the team? Like, are you just mad? And sometimes I'm in agreement. I'm like, yeah, okay, we should make this change. So I'd be
Hmm.
like, okay, wait, don't do anything yet. I have to talk to the org. I wake up the next morning. Like David had cut him already, and like and then I'm getting messaged by like the org, and like I'm like, dude, and then he's like, well, we just needed to cut him, and I'm like, yeah, but like there's a hierarchy now. Like so many of these tier
Yeah.
two players are used to just kind of doing whatever they want. Like, oh, I don't want to play
Right.
with you anymore. You're gone. Like, I want to pick him up. Like, because they've never been contracted, they never had orgs, they never have responsibilities. Like, there is
Yeah.
there's been times where like I would be like, yo, I'm not gonna throw the people under the bus, but they'll know if they're watching. um, that like there'd be times where like a tournament would be like, we need you wearing a black shirt. Chest up face shot. And I'll be
Yeah.
like, yo, guys, can everyone give me the picture? I don't want to. I don't care. I'll just take the fine. Okay,
Like,
there's no fine, dude. Like we just need to
we
give
just
them.
need
We just
this.
need the picture.
Yeah. Okay.
My shirts are in the wash. okay, they said you can use a white shirt. Like, like
Yeah.
it's just like pulling teeth sometimes. And like a
Yeah.
lot of it for me was just like trying to make them understand like you have to do stuff as a pro that is lame. Like when you go to the
I know.
events,
Yep.
media days suck, dude. I get it. I hate them. And a lot of times I
Hmm.
tell them like I don't like this either. Like I
No,
think
right.
it's stupid as well, but we have to do it.
Right.
Like
This is what getting paid anything is.
yeah.
It's part of it.
And then
Yeah.
like we'd have arguments like, well, having org doesn't even really matter. They pay for our stuff, like because events do pay. But I'm like, yeah,
Oh,
like, but you're one person. Like you might be able to live, but you
right.
have four other teammates that two of them need a salary or they can't survive. They have rent. They have. So I'm like,
Yeah.
your decision is very like personal dependent, right? Like it's very selfish. So I'm like, you have to think of these things, and also keeping a roster together without an org is very difficult because someone
Right.
could just get poached or leave willy nilly. Like imagine Junior isn't contracted and the team needs an opper, and
Right.
then
Exactly.
like say complexity like Halzark, they're like is going back to Sweden and they're like we Junior we're gonna pick you up. Well, then we're screwed. We lose our opper, right? So like a lot of things that like they don't get that
Yeah.
orgs kind of provide, and like getting even little things like boot camps, like dude, they're expensive, man. Boot
For
camps are
sure.
like minimum 10K, minimum.
Hmm.
They're usually more. So there's a lot of factors that I think like the tier two scene is like. I'm not gonna say they're all entitled because some people are very grateful. Some people are very happy with their art. It's not everyone, but
Yeah.
getting everyone on the same page and everything like coming from TSM, Complexity, Cloud9, it was just like I played with so many people that had already been in that life. Nothing, Sean, Hiko. It was just like Shroud. Like we know what to expect. Like you go to an event, got to do signings. Like players hated doing the fan signings. But I'm like, bro, like people are coming to watch you. They're supporting you. Like
Yeah.
they're the
Exactly.
reason you're getting paid. Like I've always liked talking to people and stuff. Like yeah, anyways, it would be like, so I would do a lot. That's why you saw me on Nouns do a lot of the interviews and a lot of stuff because no one wanted to. So like,
Right.
it wasn't like I was some like diva. Like I'm the coach. I'm gonna do the interviews. I'd be like, anyone want to do the interview? Nah. Okay. Are you sure? You guys sure it helps your brand? No, you do it. Okay. Like it was
Right.
never me like trying to do it. It was just like the way that it happened. And like sometimes the events would ask for me, but which is fine because some people want the coach's input. But yeah, it's just so like tier two is a little messy in NA. I think that maybe Europeans have a better mindset some of the times, like uh, with like especially with some of these like up and coming Russian players, Ukrainian players, like they seem more like professional from the outside. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
Like,
I like. I don't know if I want to blow this up to be like a much bigger topic, but I do feel like America compared to some European countries, it's just that in European countries, you're so much more likely to be middle class, whereas in America, there's such drastically different living conditions for different people.
that is true.
It's like the income, like I don't know if I want to say income inequality, because if they're all on the same team, they should be getting the same stuff. It's kind of like your sort of privilege inequality of like
Well,
well, how
I,
much is
I
supporting
don't think you're
you.
completely wrong though, because if you live in New York versus like Ohio and you're getting $2,000 a month, the guy in Ohio is doing much better.
Yeah,
The,
he's fine.
the,
He's cool.
he's
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 chilling.
chilling, and the guy in New York's like plugging his computer in on the street.
He's doing that and he's streaming for like 8 hours a day to try to support himself on top of the
Yeah,
practices and stuff.
yeah,
Yeah.
because like some of the places in the U.S. expensive. But I get what you mean though. Like a lot of times in European, like they can just take a semester off, like and
Oh,
just
they
like
I mean they get like the Danish people, I don't want people to quote me on this, but it's like if you're they have such great social safety nets that if you're basically taking like what 4 units a semester, they'll give you something equivalent to like $2,000 a month or something,
yeah, like
3,000 like based just because you're part of society, like you're participating actively in the and that's why I don't want this like, we're going long and stuff. So like
yeah,
I don't want to downplay people's achievements, but when I hear like people say like, "Oh, Kerrigan got a degree while doing it," it's like, yeah, that actually helped him. That actually was like beneficial
yeah, that's
because the
fair.
Danish
Yeah.
government paid him to get the degree. It's not like people are like, "Oh, Americans are so lazy. Like all they're doing is like this,"
Because
and
in
they're like,
America
then
you
they
have to
give up.
work and go to school and
That's
and play. Whereas like if you can do
exactly.
two, I think if
They
if your time management is
you,
good.
Europeans will like they'll simultaneously like make fun of Americans for not working hard enough because they're like, oh, like you're only playing and you're not that good or whatever. But at the same time, they'll talk about all the benefits they have in there. So like, oh, America sucks because you guys don't have free healthcare,
Yeah.
you don't have free education. Like, oh, we get this for free, we get that for free, and it's like, yes, that's making your life easier so you can pursue esports. Like it's actually in some ways easier there, although there's obviously benefits to being North American in trying to get into esports. I'm not going to downplay that. Also, like English first language, the fact that you can understand most of us really easily. Like, we didn't have to learn English. Like
No.
we just grew up with it.
Well, I
So
did learn English.
yeah.
I didn't know it when I was first born, but
Oh yeah, okay, wow. You weren't born with the innate skill.
yeah, I
Okay.
don't know.
You were behind that.
Yeah, I was behind.
Okay.
No,
Yeah.
I agree with you, but honestly, like as a Canadian, and I've been to a lot of different countries, people hate that I say this, but I'm like, dude, America's the best. They get so mad, but I'm like, dude,
I know.
if you're poor,
Yes.
Europe and Canada is better. Don't get me
Yes.
wrong, 100%.
For sure.
Like if
Yeah.
you're bottom 30% of the population, like income earners, you way more safety nets, better health care, food is cheaper,
Yep.
like vegetables and stuff. Like Germany, it was surprising how cheap it was for me to just like buy meat and veggies. Cheaper than Canada, much cheaper.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
But like if you make good money and you live in the US, like you don't have to worry about the healthcare aspect because you have insurance generally.
Yeah.
Um, and like, dude, it's just like everything is just more convenient. Like in North America, things are bigger. There's
Yeah.
AC everywhere.
Yeah, I
Like there's a
know.
billion food options. Like Uber Eats 24/7. Like, and don't get me wrong, some of those are like gluttonous type of things,
Totally.
and maybe they're not like they're not necessary, but like I don't know. I go to Texas, dude. Everyone's so nice. Like, like people
I
like
know.
I'm in Canada. I'll be like, yeah, I'm going to Texas to someone in my gym, and they'll be like, oh yeah, they have a lot of guns down there. I'm like, yeah, they're not shooting at me though. Like,
I know, I know.
I'm
I
like,
know.
sure, like,
I know.
but like
It's just
they just think like there's just dudes just like shooting up schools every day and shit. I'm like,
I know.
no, like, yeah, sure it happens and it's sad, but
Yeah. Yeah, for
like
sure.
Switzerland has like just as many guns as Americans do, and they don't have shootings all the time. Anyway, that's political, but like,
Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
I don't know. I just like America. I mean, don't get me wrong. I like Sweden and Denmark too. It's just like
I,
there's a little bit more comfort in the U.S. That's all I'm
I,
saying. Like,
if I'm, I'll just, yeah, if I'm making tier one, if I'm making the G2 salary, would I want to live like Nico in Belgrade, Serbia, or would I want to live in New York City? And I think many people. I think I'm not even just trying to be like an American here and
yeah,
say I would pick New York or I'd pick LA or I'd pick Houston, Tech, whatever, Dallas. You know, it doesn't matter.
yeah,
Chicago. I think most people on the planet are picking Chicago or
yeah.
Dallas or whatever.
It's just like there's more things readily available that you can have. The apartments, AC housing is generally nicer.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that you can't get nice places over there and they'll be cheaper generally, but I'm just saying like there's just some convenience things like you go to a decent hotel in Denmark and the beds are tiny, and I'm like, dude,
Oh my
you're all
God.
tall though.
Dude, the
Like,
Nordic hotels are just like I just had to get you almost have to get adjusted to them. Like
yeah,
it's crazy. You could go to a pretty inexpensive hotel in America and they are way better. You got AC, you got a thermostat and you could
yeah,
change it and it works, you know?
yeah, I
It does
know.
stuff.
And
I
then
can
you're
make my room freezing cold or burning hot in like the cheap, not a Motel 6, but like a La Quinta Inn, you know?
yeah, yeah, it's like $80 a night. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, sorry, people from Paris, but like, look at the Paris Olympics. They didn't even give AC to the fucking Olympians, dude.
I know.
What? You know,
Europeans with AC are so weird to
I would
me.
be so mad. They're like, oh, it's climate, dude. It's Olympics once every 4 years. These guys are trying to run as fast as humanly possible. Let them sleep properly.
Yeah,
Like,
seriously.
that one blew my mind. Like, I was like, really? You guys didn't have AC for these guys? Like,
I know.
it's like 40 degrees out, or like
I
over
okay.
100 in Fahrenheit, I guess. Like, wild. But
We're definitely at this point in the podcast. Like some of the people that like us are really liking us, but some people are like, I didn't know I disliked you, but now I
yeah,
do.
I know. If you want to be liked by everyone, you have to never say anything political.
I know.
Like,
I know. Or just even have preferences, really. You can't even
Yeah.
have you can't have true preferences. You got to say everything's good. And no, I mean, like, I got a preference. I mean, I live in America because I like to. I lived in Europe. It's
Oh,
cool. I like London a lot. I like the
no,
UK a
London,
lot.
London's awesome, and keep in mind, I like the Europe. I like it. Like I
Yeah,
enjoyed
same.
Serbia a lot. I'm one of the few people that I like Serbia a lot. And like
Unique. Yeah.
yeah, Germany is awesome. Like all these places are cool.
I love Germany.
I'm just saying like if I had to live somewhere, I just prefer to live in the U.S. Is all like because then I can own guns. I can just go in my backyard and just shoot. Just
Yeah,
kidding.
you probably have land.
Yeah.
You can kind of get whatever car you want. You're also the roads. Maybe not the roads are always maintained the best in all of America, but like you could kind of just drive everywhere and you don't have to worry. Like I guess one thing that's always a little weird if you rent a car in Europe is like you drive through the city center and you're like, oh, that road's closed. Oh, that road's
Yeah,
closed.
the
Oh, I can't drive down
toll
there.
roads everywhere,
Oh,
and
there's a
like
toll road there. There's a
yeah,
toll road there. Like I could drive all. I'm in Sacramento right now. I could drive all the way to LA for free. Like
yeah.
that's like a 6.5 hour drive, and the road's good too, by the way. And I could drive like right on the ocean too for the whole thing.
And I'll
It's
say
like
and I'll say too, like when the Europeans like they'll be like, oh, like you haven't been outside of North America, like each state is like a country.
I
Like
know it's way bigger.
you know what I mean. So like
Yeah, yeah,
I understand where people are like, oh, it's nice living in Europe because you can go from London to Paris in like an hour, and I'm like. I get it. It's a lot different. Like the culturally, there's a
yeah.
bigger shock in Europe going from one place to another. But it's like, dude, you can go to like Yellowstone National Park
Yeah.
in the U.S. and then you can like go to New York and like it's the same thing, just different. Like to me at least.
I don't need a passport, and I could drive right
Yeah,
now if I
no
want to
customs.
to Yosemite, and I could also fly to New York, and I could also go like I could go to Alaska. You know, I could go to Alaska and I could see glaciers, and I don't
Yeah,
know, I could go to Hawaii also. Like technically not in North America, but you know what I mean. Like there's all these extremes. America has so much crazy natural beauty, and people just kind of get hung up on the fact that New York's smelly and dirtier than
they just
European
look at
cities.
L.A. and New York and
Yeah,
judge off those.
yeah,
And like honestly, I don't want to be downtown L.A. or New York either. Like
right,
um,
right.
Texas, I really like just because I like Texas because it's big and sprawling, and I feel like
Mhm.
at home there. Whereas like in Paris, everything's fucking like
Yeah,
it's like
yeah.
all the roads are tiny, like everything's tiny. Um,
My
but
shoulder is bumping into somebody or my elbow is bumping into somebody every single day in
yeah,
those cities,
in
which
Texas, I got
is
to walk
yeah.
10 minutes to walk by one person. Like they don't even
Yeah.
go outside. It's like you just drive.
And they'll wave at you and say hi. That's
Yeah,
the best part.
they're so
Yeah.
nice. I mean, like there's places in Europe, Denmark. Everyone was really nice in
Sure.
Denmark, like for sure
Yeah.
when I went there. Denmark reminded me a lot of Canada, actually.
Mm.
Yeah, so I mean, those were my biases. But I mean, like at the end of the day, you know, if we get hated for this, look at Mr. Beast, dude. This guy gives away $1 million, and everyone's hating him right now. So
That's true. There's nothing you can the more of it yourself you put out there, the more fans you get and the more haters you get. It is just life.
it's just everyone is so I don't know, like everyone's so polarizing, which is why I'm voting for Trump. I'm Canadian, I can't even vote there, but like, yeah, people just get so mad lately, and I'm just like, bro, chill. You know, my stance is like you don't have to like be one for everyone to like them. You
Right.
know, like
Right.
how many people do you know that you agree with everything they say? Like,
There will be one person in the comment section here that's going to say, I agreed with everything you guys said about SnapTap and these teams, but I hated your takes on North America versus
yeah,
Europe.
which is fine, which is
Yeah,
totally fine.
that's
And like,
okay. Okay.
and I'm not saying what I'm saying is factual. It's just my own opinion. You know,
Yeah.
like I'm not saying like factually this is better. Like everyone has their own. Like one of the reasons that I kind of like people like hate on America is because they'll be like, oh, all the guns and blah blah blah, and I'm like, isn't it kind of cool though that we have like a country
I know.
where you can kind of do that, and then if you don't like that, you could move to another country where like those are banned. Like, I don't know why everyone wants everything to be the same. Like, I kind of
Yeah,
like the
exactly.
fact that there's different countries with different rules and different
Yeah, truly.
philosophies. Like, you know, I mean, if you want to be controlled by the government, you go to China. You know,
Yeah.
the cameras everywhere. Like,
Yeah.
anyways, I'm getting murdered probably by someone,
The
but
state, the state, the unnamed state.
I'm on a lot of lists. I already know. I already know that.
I'm probably on a list just for joining a podcast with you.
It's probably at that point, but yeah. Anyways, we've been on for a while, so
Yeah. Yeah.
I hope you guys enjoyed our ranting, and probably try to do this. Well, I don't know Maui, but I was gonna try to get a couple other people to join and just have like a round table BS fest maybe before events or after events to just talk about shit, just for fun. So
Yeah.
this was our first attempt. So tell us what you guys liked, what you didn't like, and we'll try to do more of these in the future potentially. I am trying to do some other, just general podcasts with people too. Soham is kind of like just coming on when he has time.
Mm-hmm.
He's gonna be here for some, not for others. Generally, if I have like a really big guest, Soham's gonna be there. Like if I got like, let's just say a liege or
Mm-hmm.
something, like Soham would want to be there. But for some of the just talking about general stuff, he's busy. He's a busy guy, so I don't want to like
Yep.
always try to. It's also really hard to get like coordinate like 3 or 4 people
Oh yeah.
to the same time slot on the same day when they're all not busy. Like it's actually a
Yeah.
lot harder than you think. Or people just won't be like, when can you do it? And they'll be like, next week. I'm when? Like what day
Yeah.
works for you, man? Like I don't care. I'm
People are
available.
non-committal
Yeah, I'm
these
like
days.
just
Yeah.
tell me. But yeah, I get
Yeah.
it. And then people are busy traveling to events and stuff like that. So
Mm-hmm.
anyways, boys, follow Maui. I'll put some links down there, and follow me if you want, and yeah, follow Nouns. Peace, boys.